The shield cracked like glass under a sledgehammer. Alistar's grin never faltered, but his gaze tracked the fracture lines spreading across the crimson barrier he'd thrown over the Hazbin hotel. Outside, the sky burned radiant with holy light. Exorcists dropped through the air like locusts' wings, folded tight spears gleaming. Charlie stood at the window, hands pressed against the glass. Her voice came out small. "We can still talk to them." No one answered. The first spear punched through the barrier, then another. The shield held for 3 more seconds before Adam's fist came down and shattered it completely. The sound rolled across Pride Ring like thunder. Debris rained. Sinners scattered. Adam landed on the hotel roof with enough force to crack tiles. His wings spread wide, blocking out the portal behind him. "Exterminations got a schedule, sweetheart. You're on it." Charlie moved toward the door. Vaggie caught her arm. "Don't. They'll listen if I just—" The roof exploded. Exorcists poured through the gap, dozens of them, holy weapons raised. The lobby filled with brilliant light and the smell of ozone. One of them swung at a sinner, cowering near the bar. The spear came down. It never landed. A blade intercepted it mid-arc. The exorcist stumbled back confused, staring at Yamato that had appeared from nowhere. The wielder stood between her and her target, wearing a long coat the color of midnight and holding steel that seemed to drink the light around it. Virgil didn't look at the exorcist. He looked past her, scanning the room with a calculating stare, taking inventory. 23 hostiles, civilians in the crossfire. One loud asshole on the roof. The math was simple. The exorcist recovered and lunged. Virgil sidestepped, let her momentum carry her past, and drove his heel into her knee. Bone snapped. She hit the ground, screaming. He was already moving. Another exorcist dove at him from the left. Virgil's free hand came up. Blue energy coalesced into a spectral blade that shot forward and pinned the attacker to the wall through the shoulder. She thrashed, wings beating uselessly. "What the hell is that?" Husk's voice somewhere behind the bar. A pause. "Angels and influencers. My 2 favorite plagues." 2 more exorcists came at him in tandem, coordinated, trying to flank. He pivoted the midnight fabric, sweeping out, and his blade traced a line through the air. Space itself seemed to split along that path. The first exorcist's spear sheared in half. The second lost 3 feathers and part of her helmet before she could process what had happened. They dropped back, regrouping. Virgil sheathed his weapon with a soft click. The room went quiet except for the groaning of injured exorcists and the crackle of settling debris. Then the screens flickered on. Every television in the hotel, every monitor, every cracked phone screen on the floor. Vox's face filled them all, his grin wide enough to show teeth that didn't quite look human. "Ladies and gentlemen of hell, are you seeing this because I am seeing this?" His voice boomed from every speaker. "We've got a situation developing at the Hazbin Hotel. Extermination Day just got interesting. Hell, it just got premium." A producer's voice faint in the background. "We're live in 5-4. We're already live, sweetheart. This is history. Brought to you by Vox Tech, because even genocide deserves good production value." Charlie stepped forward, hands raised. "Please, everyone, just stop." Adam crashed through what was left of the ceiling. He hit the lobby floor hard enough to crater. It straightened up and locked eyes on Virgil. "You!" Adam pointed one gauntleted finger. "You're not supposed to be here." Virgil said nothing. "I'm talking to you, asshole. What are you—" Still nothing. Virgil's hand rested on Yamato's hilt thumb against the guard, waiting. Adam's expression shifted from confusion to anger. "Fine, don't talk, just bleed." He charged. Virgil drew. The blade came out in a silver arc that left after-images. Adam's punch met empty air. Virgil was already behind him, coat still settling from the movement. A thin red line appeared across Adam's armor. It held for a moment, then split. The metal peeled back like paper. Adam spun faster than something his size should move. His backhand caught Virgil across the chest and sent him sliding backward 3 feet. Boots scraped tile. Virgil's expression didn't change. "Oh, you're tough." Adam rolled his shoulders. "Good. I was getting bored." He came in again, throwing combinations that would have pulped brick. Virgil parried, deflected, stepped between the strikes. Their weapons met with sounds like church bells. Every impact sent shockwaves through the floor. Furniture disintegrated. Windows blew out. The exorcists regrouped near the entrance, forming a perimeter. One of them raised her spear toward a group of sinners huddled behind an overturned couch. Virgil's eyes flicked to her. His left hand made a sharp gesture. 3 spectral swords materialized and shot across the room. They slammed into the floor in front of the exorcist, forming a barrier. She jerked back. Adam used the distraction. His fist connected with Virgil's ribs. The impact echoed. Virgil took 2 steps back, rolled his shoulder, and came forward again, without pause. "The hell are you made of?" Adam's breathing was harder now. Virgil's answer was another draw cut faster than the first. This one caught Adam across the thigh. Holy blood welled up bright and divine. Adam looked down at it, then up at Virgil, and something changed in his expression. "You're actually trying to kill me." Virgil's silence was answer enough. "Cute." Adam's wings flared, light gathered in his palms. "My turn." The blast would have vaporized the hotel. Virgil moved through it. Not around. Through. His garment burned at the edges, but his stride never broke. Yamato came up in a rising cut that would have taken Adam's head if the angel hadn't thrown himself backward hard enough to crack the wall behind him. They stared at each other across the ruined lobby. Adam was bleeding from 4 different cuts now. None of them deep. All of them precise. Virgil had a scorch mark across his chest and torn sleeves. Neither of them looked tired. "Okay." Adam wiped celestial blood from his mouth. "Okay, you got skills. But you know what I got back up." He snapped his fingers. The portal above the hotel pulsed. More exorcists poured through, twice as many as before. They filled the air like a swarm. Weapons raised, voices lifted in something between a hymn and a battle cadence. Charlie tried again. "Please, we can—" "Shut up, Morningstar." Adam didn't look at her. His eyes stayed locked on Virgil. "This one's different. This one's dangerous." Vox's voice cut in from every screen. "Understatement of the century, folks. Our mystery fighter just went toe-to-toe with the first man himself. The question everyone's asking, who is this guy?" Virgil's eyes moved from Adam to the swarm of exorcists overhead. The math had changed. 70, maybe 80 hostiles now. Civilians still in the building. The angel in front of him would take time to put down properly. Time the others wouldn't have. He made a decision, his hand blurred. Yamato sang out of its sheath 4 times in the space between heartbeats. Each strike opened a rift in space. The exorcists dove, scattered, broke formation. 11 of them hit the floor with severed wings or shattered weapons. None of them got back up quickly, but they were still coming. Virgil's coat snapped out as he turned. His eyes found the civilians' calculated angles and trajectories. His jaw tightened by a fraction of an inch. The only sign of irritation he'd shown. Adam saw it and laughed. "What's wrong can't protect them and fight me at the same time." Virgil's response was to sheathe his blade again. The motion was deliberate, final. Adam's smirk widened. "Giving up already?" "No." The first word Virgil had spoken since entering the building. His voice was flat level, and somehow worse than the silence. "Finishing." He drew so fast the motion blurred. The cut he made wasn't aimed at Adam. It went through the air itself, a perfect horizontal line that bisected the room. Reality split along that edge. The severance didn't hunt flesh, it found bindings, blessed metal straps, and seams holding armor together. Every exorcist between Virgil and the far wall stopped moving. For 3 seconds, nothing happened. Then they fell. Weapons clattered to the floor separately from their owners, severed cleanly. Wings detached. Armor came apart at the fastenings. The cut had been so precise, it hadn't touched skin, only the things they carried and wore. 70 exorcists disarmed in a single strike. The lobby went dead silent. Vox's voice quieter now. Did everyone just see that? Adam stared. His wings drooped slightly. What are you? Virgil didn't answer. He walked past the angel, past the scattered exorcists, toward the door. His coat settled around him like a shroud. Charlie found her voice. Wait, where are you going? Virgil paused at the threshold, looked up. The portal still hung open above the hotel, radiant light, spilling out more exorcists visible in the distance, preparing to descend. His hand settled on Yamato's hilt. Adam crashed through what remained of the ceiling, landing hard enough to send cracks spidering through the lobby floor. He straightened, wings spreading, and locked onto Virgil with an expression somewhere between fury and something that might have been calculation. You. Adam's voice had lost its swagger. You're not supposed to be here. Virgil said nothing. What are you? Still nothing, just that cold, level stare. Adam's jaw worked. Behind him, the portal pulsed. More exorcists gathered at its edges, waiting for orders. The math was changing again. This isn't over, Adam said, and this time there was no bravado in it, just statement of fact. Virgil's thumb pressed against the guard. The blade slid half an inch free, catching the light. Finally, he said quietly. On every screen in hell, Vox leaned forward. Get me everything. Trace that energy signature. I want to know what he is before dawn. A pause. His grin sharpened. And get Valentino on the line. Tell him we have an asset problem. In the lobby, Charlie stepped forward, hands raised. Thank you for... We really appreciate, who are you? Virgil. Virgil. She repeated it carefully. I'm Charlie. This is my hotel. We're trying to redeem sinners to prove that... Not my concern. The words landed flat. But you fought for us. You protected... I fought them. His hand gestured vaguely toward the ceiling, toward heaven's forces. Different reason. What reason? He looked at her, then really looked at her. And something in his expression made her take a step back. They were enforcing law through annihilation. I disagreed. Alistar's laugh came from the shadows. Oh, I like this one. Virgil's gaze shifted to the radio demon. They studied each other for a moment, two predators taking measure. Alistar's grin never wavered. Nothing in Virgil's face acknowledged it. You're welcome to stay, Charlie tried again. We have rooms. We can offer no contracts, no debts, no obligations. Each word came out precise, final. I'm not one of yours. He turned toward the door. Outside, the portal flared brighter. Adam's voice echoed down from somewhere above, rallying what was left of his forces. The next wave was assembling. Vergil stepped into the street. The portal hung above him, like a wound in the skylight bleeding through. Exorcists were already descending for round 2, and somewhere in Vox Tech Tower, Vox's grin was sharp enough to cut. Tell Valentino to bring contracts, he said. Lots of contracts. Okay. So honestly, Chapter 1 is just Virgil showing up in the wrong place and deciding, yeah, fuck it, this is my problem now. I think that is the most Virgil thing ever. He does not care about hell, politics, angels, none of that shit. He just hears loud, winged dudes yapping and decides to mute them with a sword. I honestly love how Adam pulls up all confident like he runs the place, and Virgil looks at him like an annoying math problem. I bet Adam thought this was going to be easy, and then 5 seconds later, he is bleeding and confused about it. Virgil fights like he is doing homework, calm as hell, cutting angles, breaking knees, not even looking at half the angels trying to stab him. The funniest part for me is when Virgil disarms like 70 angels in 1 second and does not even hurt them. I think that is such a flex. He is basically saying you are not worth killing, you are just shit in the way. Like furniture. He just rearranges the room and keeps walking. And while Vox, losing his mind in the background trying to turn this into content, is peak capitalism. I hate that he is right, though, because watching Adam realize he is not immortal anymore is premium content. I would watch that shit on repeat. Honestly, I think Virgil is either annoyed they are wasting his time, or he just hates their vibe. Let's be real. Adam has zero drip. Virgil shows up in a clean coat with style, and everyone else looks like background NPCs. I also think it is kinda scary how Virgil cuts the armor and the bindings instead of the people. That tells me he is already figuring out how this world works and realizing he can cut the idea of things not just bodies. That is broken as hell. Alistar liking him makes total sense. Real predators always notice each other. But of course, Virgil makes it awkward by not joining anyone and just leaving. I bet he refuses to be a side character in someone else's story. The chapter ending is perfect, though. Adam is left having a full mental breakdown about bleeding and death. And Virgil just walks away, like this was a small chore. To him, it was just another annoying stop on the way to more power. The silence lasted 3 seconds. Then heaven regrouped. Adam stood on what remained of the hotel roof, one hand pressed to the gash across his chest. Divine blood, bright viscous, leaked between his fingers. Around him, exorcists pulled themselves upright. Retrieved broken spears helped their wingless companions to their feet. The assault had stalled, but not stopped. Above the gateway pulsed. More figures gathered at its edges, backlit and waiting. Adam's jaw worked. No more bravado. No more swagger. His voice came out flat, controlled. Status. An exorcist limped forward, helmet cracked one wing, hanging useless. 47 combat ineffective. 16 wings severed. All ranged weapons compromised. Fatalities. None confirmed. Adam's fingers tightened against the damage. The word hung there, sharp-edged. Confirmed. In 1,000 exterminations, that qualifier had never been necessary. Angels didn't need confirmation. They just didn't die. He's still down there, another exorcist said, gesturing toward the street. Adam looked. Virgil stood in the middle of the road alone, surrounded by the wreckage of the first wave. No defensive posture, no guarding the hotel. Just standing there, waiting for round 2 like it was an appointment. What is he? The question came from an exorcist, missing half her armor. Adam shook his head slowly. Don't know, don't care. He straightened wings, folding tight against his back. New plan, formations, zone control. We don't rush him. We box him in, overwhelm. His angles force him to choose what he protects. Sir, the hotel. Forget the hotel. Adam's tone could have frozen fire. That thing down there just made us bleed. Priority 1 contain. Priority 2 data. Priority 3. He paused, looking at his own blood on his palm. Find out if he can die. Fresh exorcists descended, these ones carrying shields moving in tight wedges. No more diving attacks. No more solo glory runs. This was suppression tactics. Inside the hotel, Charlie pressed against the window. They're changing formation. Vergil stood beside her, spear ready, but useless at this range. He's not coming back in. Maybe he doesn't need to. Alistar's voice drifted from somewhere near the bar. Maybe that's not what he does. Charlie turned. What do you mean? Protection requires staying dear. Alistar examined his claws, unconcerned. He doesn't strike me as the staying type. On every screen, still functioning in Hellvox's face filled the frame. His usual expression had sharpened into something calculating. Folks, what you're witnessing is unprecedented. Heaven's elites just got their wings clipped literally by an unknown entity who walked into extermination day like he owned the place. He leaned forward. The question isn't just, who is he? It's who gets to him first. Behind him off camera, a door opened. Valentino's silhouette appeared, moth wings, casting shadows. We recording Vesum? Valentino's voice smooth as poison. Always. Vox didn't look away from the monitors. See that The way he moves, no hesitation, no fear. That's not courage. That's certainty. Certainty can be purchased or broken. Vox's fingers drummed against the console. Either way, I want him. Before Carmela gets ideas. Before the other overlords start bidding. And if he's not for sale, Vox's smile widened. Everyone's for sale, Val. Some just need better contracts. On the street, Virgil watched the new formations descend. Shield's front spears back, holy energy crackling between them in a synchronized net they'd learned. Adapted. Good. The first wedge hit the ground 20 feet away. 5 exorcists moving as one unit, energy tethering them together. The second wedge landed opposite, boxing him in. Third and fourth followed, creating a perimeter. Virgil's hand rested on Yamato's hilt. Didn't draw, just waited. An exorcist from the eastern wedge called out, "Surrender! Face heaven's judgment!" No response. "You have killed?" "I haven't." Virgil's voice cut through like a knife. "Check your wounded, they're all breathing." The exorcist hesitated. Looked to her commander. The commander nodded slowly, confirming it. Everyone who'd fallen was injured, disabled, humiliated, but alive. Then why fight? The question came from a different wedge, genuine confusion in it. Virgil's stare tracked across all 4 units. You enforce through annihilation. Someone had to demonstrate the alternative. Mercy, sir. The commander's tone dripped skepticism. Efficiency. Virgil's thumb pressed against the guard. Half an inch of steel emerged, catching the ambient glow from the gateway. Killing you wastes time. Stopping you doesn't. The squads tightened. Energy nets intensified. They were preparing a synchronized assault hit from all angles, simultaneously, no opening for counterattack. Adam descended from the roof, landing behind the eastern wedge. His wound had stopped bleeding, but the gash remained a visible reminder. On my mark, full suppression. Don't try to kill him, just hold him down long enough for me to... Virgil moved, not toward any wedge. Upward. He kicked off a piece of rubble, used it to launch himself at an angle the groups hadn't covered, straight up toward the descending reinforcements still in the air. An exorcist tried to intercept. Virgil's free hand shot out, grabbed her shield, twisted. The momentum spun her around, and he used the rotation to propel himself higher, releasing her mid-spin. She tumbled away, alive, disoriented. He reached the aerial group, 6 exorcists in loose formation, and drew Yamato in a single fluid motion. First strike separated helmet straps. The exorcist's headgear flew off, leaving her exposed but unharmed. Second strike, gauntlet bindings. Holy steel clattered away from her fingers that suddenly couldn't grip weapons. Third strike, wing joints. Not the flesh, the blessed reinforcement plates that gave them structural integrity in hell's atmosphere. 3 exorcists dropped like stone's wings, intact, but unable to support flight. 4th through 6th, simultaneous. Yamato traced a circle in the air. Every breastplate within the arc split at the seams, not cutting flesh, but separating the blessed metal from its bindings. Armor fell away, like shed skin. All 6 exorcists descended in controlled falls, stripped but alive. Virgil landed back on the street. Yamato slid home. The motion took less than 4 seconds. The attack pattern hadn't even completed. Adam stared. His expression had gone from controlled fury to something approaching analytical horror. He's not fighting us. He's studying us. One of the disarmed exorcists on the ground coughed, struggling to her knees. Her armor was gone, but her body was unmarked. No cuts, no bruises, just perfectly disassembled. Another exorcist. This one with severed wing plates felt where the reinforcement had been. The organic wing underneath was intact. She could feel it. She just couldn't fly with it. "Sir," she said quietly, "my wings aren't healing." Adam's head snapped toward her. "What?" "The plates. They're not regrowing. I can feel the separation, but there's no regeneration." Another voice from across the street. "Mine either." then another. Same here. Adam's face darkened. He looked at the gash across his chest. Bleeding had stopped, but the flesh hadn't closed. Angelic healing was slow in hell, but it was inevitable. Except this wasn't healing. The edges felt wrong, severed at a level that went past physical damage. "What did you do?" He rounded on Virgil, voice sharp. Virgil glanced at him briefly. "Separated precisely. That doesn't... Your blessed reinforcements bond to flesh through celestial binding. I severed the binding, not the flesh." Virgil's tone was clinical, as if explaining basic mechanics. "The damage remains because the connection is cut at its root. Your healing can't reattach what isn't there anymore." An exorcist in the northern wedge spoke up, voice shaking slightly. That's permanent damage. Until someone with sufficient understanding of celestial architecture repairs it, yes." Virgil's gaze moved across the assembled forces. "You've been fighting creatures who can't touch those bindings. I can. Remember that." The implications settled over the street like falling ash. Angels weren't dying, but they were being unmade in ways that didn't heal, that had never been possible before. Adam took a step forward, then stopped. His tactical instincts warred with his rage. The smart play was retreat, regroup, report this to higher command. The proud play was to charge in and prove heaven's superiority. Virgil made the decision for him. He turned his back on the formations and moved into Pride Ring, not toward the hotel, away from it, deeper into the chaos of interrupted extermination. "Where are you going?" Adam's shout had frustration in it. Virgil didn't stop. "If they keep coming, I'll keep cutting. That's all. We're not done." "Then follow." Adam hesitated. Following meant leaving the hotel unguarded. Leaving meant abandoning the mission. But letting this entity walk away meant losing the only chance to understand what had just happened. He made a gesture. Half the positions peeled off to pursue. The other half held at the hotel. Virgil registered the split. Acceptable. Fewer to cut through at once. Inside the hotel, Charlie's hands pressed against the glass. He's leading them away. How strategic. Alistar's smile had gone sharp. And how convenient for us. Vaggie's grip tightened on her spear. He said he wasn't protecting us. He's not. Alistar tilted his head. He's simply removing obstacles. We happen to benefit. Coincidence is such a useful fiction. On the Vox tech screens, the angle shifted. Cameras tracked Virgil through the streets, tracked the formations, pursuing him, tracked Adam's conflicted expression. Vox leaned back. "Val, you seeing this? The part where he's dividing their forces, or the part where he just rewrote angelic invulnerability?" "Both." Vox's fingers flew across controls, tagging footage, isolating frames. "We need that tech, that capability, that precision." Valentino moved into frame, arms crossed. "Contracts won't work if he can cut them. Then we make it so he doesn't want to." Vox pulled up a secondary screen, showing Hell's social feeds. They were exploding. Overlords taking notice, sinners spreading rumors, fear mixing with something that might have been hope. Look at the narrative forming. Unknown savior. Heaven's nightmare. The one who can wound gods. That's dangerous branding. Exactly. Vox's grin was pure calculation. If we don't control it, someone else will. Carmela will want his secrets. The other Vs will want his image. And every desperate sinner in hell will want him as a symbol. So what's the play? We make him need us. Vox switched views, zooming in on Virgil's face as he walked. Cold, focused, alone. Everyone needs something. We just have to find his price. 3 blocks from the hotel, Virgil stopped. The pursuing squads caught up, spread out, surrounded him in a wider perimeter this time. Adam landed in front of him, wings spread but tattered blood still visible on his armor. "You want to do this away from civilians? Fine. Just you and me. No tricks, no formations. Prove you can beat an angel straight up." Virgil looked past him, scanning the sky. More exorcists hovering, more reinforcements staging. The gateway still open, still pulsing. They'd keep coming until someone made them stop. His hand moved to Yamato. Adam tensed, ready. Then Virgil's other hand came up. Blue energy gathered, coalesced. Not summon swords this time, something different. A sphere of compressed force that hummed with barely contained violence. You want proof? Virgil's voice was colder than before. Here. He threw it, not at Adam, at the street beneath Adam's feet. The sphere hit pavement and detonated. Not outward, downward. The ground collapsed into a crater 40 feet across, swallowing 3 exorcists and sending Adam tumbling sideways. Virgil was already moving. He closed the distance before Adam could recover, Yamato flashing out in a rising arc, aimed not at flesh, but at the angel's damaged breastplate. The strike split the armor completely. It fell away in pieces, leaving Adam's torso exposed. Adam swung wild, holy energy crackling. Virgil sidestepped, caught the arm, used the momentum to throw Adam into the crater wall. Rock cracked. Another exorcist dove from above. Virgil's free hand moved in a short, sharp gesture. A spectral blade materialized and caught her mid-dive, pinning her wing to a building wall. Not through flesh, through the blessed plate. She hung there alive, furious, immobilized. Adam emerged from the crater limping, but determined. You're not invincible. Neither are you. Virgil's stare was flat. The difference is, I know it. They circled each other. Adam's breathing was heavier now. Blood loss, divine energy expenditure, the realization, settling in that this wasn't going how exterminations were supposed to go. Virgil hadn't drawn a full breath yet. What are you trying to prove? Adam's voice had genuine confusion in it now. Nothing. Virgil's thumb rested against the guard. Proving requires audience. This is elimination of obstacles. We're heaven's will, your enforcement. Virgil's interruption was surgical. Enforcement can be stopped. Watch. He drew. Not the full technique from before. Just a single precise cut aimed at the space between them. The air split. Reality parted along an invisible line. Adam felt it, a severance in the fundamental connection between his divine essence and his physical form. Not enough to kill. Not even enough to significantly wound. Just enough to make him feel, for the first time in his existence, truly mortal. He stumbled back, hand going to his chest where the sensation centered. What did you? Virgil sheathed Yamato. The motion was final. Demonstrated limits, yours and mine. You're saying you could have Yes. The single word cut off the question. But killing you creates martyrs. Wounding you creates caution. I prefer caution. Adam's face went through several expressions, rage, denial, calculation, and finally something approaching comprehension. This wasn't a warrior seeking glory. This was a predator managing territory. Above the gateway flickered. A voice echoed down authority in every syllable. Exorcists withdraw. Regroup at staging point Alpha. This is not a retreat. This is tactical repositioning. The formations hesitated, looking to Adam. Adam stared at Virgil for a long moment. Then slowly he nodded. Fall back. Maintain overwatch. No one engages unless I give the order. The exorcists began ascending. Some pulled their immobilized companions free. Others retrieved severed armor pieces. All of them kept weapons trained on Virgil as they retreated. Virgil watched them go. Didn't pursue. Didn't gloat. Just stood there as heaven pulled back for the first time in extermination history. When the last exorcist had cleared the immediate area, Adam spread his damaged wings. They caught air barely. He rose slowly, painfully. This isn't over, he said. Virgil's response was to turn and start walking back toward the hotel. I'm talking to you. Virgil paused, looked back over his shoulder. His expression held nothing resembling emotion. Next time, bring better bindings. These were insufficient. He continued walking. Adam hovered there, bleeding, beaten, but not broken, watching the figure that had just rewritten the rules. Then he ascended toward the gateway, mind already racing through what he'd have to report. The gateway sealed behind Heaven's forces with a sound like a thunderclap. Extermination Day had ended early. On every screen in Hell, Vox captured the moment the gateway closed. His expression could have cut diamonds. Ladies and gentlemen, you just witnessed history. Heaven blinked, Heaven retreated, and one entity made it happen. He gestured to the footage of Virgil walking away. The real question now is what comes next. In Vox Tech Tower, Valentino leaned over Vox's shoulder. You really think we can own him? Own number. Vox pulled up contract templates already modifying terms. But bind leverage. Make him dependent on infrastructure we control. His fingers drummed. Everyone needs something. Even gods. He's not a god. No. Vox's smirk sharpened further. He's something Heaven fears. That's more valuable. Back on the street, Virgil found the crater where his compressed force sphere had detonated. Among the rubble, something glinted. He knelt, pulled it free. A piece of angelic steel, part of a breastplate about the size of his palm, still humming with residual holy energy. He studied it, turned it over, felt the weight, the resonance, the way it vibrated differently than mundane metal. This was what wounded them permanently. What they used to kill demons. What gave them advantage. Virgil slipped it into his coat. A voice called from behind. You're back. He turned. Charlie stood there, Vaggie beside her, both looking exhausted and wary. They might return, Charlie said carefully. We should talk about coordination, about... No. But you just saved... I removed obstacles. Your survival was incidental. Virgil's tone was neutral, clinical. Don't assign motive to convenience. Vaggie stepped forward, spear half raised. Listen, we're grateful, but then be grateful quietly. Virgil looked past them toward the hotel. Alistar stood in the doorway, watching that perpetual smile in place. Their eyes met, predator to predator. Alistar raised one hand in a small mocking salute. Virgil turned and departed. Not toward the hotel, not toward Heaven's last position, just away. Where are you going? Charlie called after him. Anywhere that isn't here. But your war isn't mine. Your redemption isn't mine. Your hotel isn't mine. He didn't stop, didn't look back. Find someone else to be your symbol. He disappeared into the smoke and ruins of Pride Ring. Behind him, Charlie stood with hands still raised, words dying in her throat. Vaggie put a hand on her shoulder. Let him go, Vaggie said quietly. But he could help us. He could... He already told you what he is. Alastar's voice drifted from the doorway. A blade? Blades don't care what they cut, dear. They just cut what's in front of them. Charlie watched the empty street where Virgil had vanished. Then why did he fight? Alastar's smile widened. Because Heaven was in front of him. If we were in front of him tomorrow, he'd cut us just as efficiently. That's precisely true. Alistar turned back into the hotel. Which makes him the most honest thing in hell. How refreshing. In Vox Tech Tower, Vox rewound the footage, froze on a frame of Virgil examining the angelic steel fragment. There. He enhanced the image. He's learning, adapting. That's not mindless destruction. That's intelligence. Valentino studied the frozen frame. And if intelligence can learn, it can be manipulated. Exactly. Vox pulled up schematics, resource maps, Overlord territories. We need 3 things. First, find where he goes. Second, identify what he needs. Third, make sure we're the only ones who can provide it. And if he doesn't need anything, Vox's grin went sharp. Then we create the need. Somewhere in the ruins of Pride Ring, Virgil found a collapsed building with structural integrity. He entered through a gap in the wall, cleared debris from a corner, and sat. The angelic steel fragment came out. He held it up to what little ambient glow filtered in. The metal sang. Not audibly, but he felt it a resonance that matched something in Yamato's own structure. Different frequency, different purpose, but compatible. He pressed his thumb against the edge. The steel resisted, then parted. A clean-cut, no visible blade. The metal's own energy allowed separation when properly manipulated. Interesting. Yamato could cut space matter bindings. This metal could make those cuts permanent against divine beings. He looked at Yamato's sheathed form, looked at the fragment, calculated possibilities. Not now, but soon. He pocketed the fragment and leaned back against the wall, eyes closing. Not sleep rest, meditation. The kind of stillness that came from complete control. Tomorrow they'd come again. Heaven or hell didn't matter. They'd bring better tactics, better weapons, better bindings. He'd be ready. Okay, so honestly, Chapter 2 is just Adam finding out he is not the main character anymore, and I think that shit is so satisfying to watch. You can literally see the panic when the exorcists get hit and go, wait, why the fuck am I not healing? I bet this is the first time in their lives they ever thought about dying. What's funny as hell is Virgil is not even fighting for real. Well, honestly, he is just testing shit. He's poking them, cutting stuff, watching what breaks like he is bored. I think he is low-key disappointed. He probably wanted a cool fight and instead got a bunch of angry birds who don't know how to block or protect their knees. And okay, guys, the way he cuts their armor and wings instead of their bodies is straight disrespect. I think that is such a nasty flex. He is basically saying, I get your magic better than you do, and now you are just normal people. No wings, no power, just standing there confused as fuck. Meanwhile, Vox and Val are in their tower acting stupid trying to figure out how to make money off this. I honestly think that is clown behavior. They see a walking natural disaster and think, yeah, we can sell this. But I get it because watching Virgil humble Adam by cutting the link between his god powers and his body is good as hell content. I would watch that shit too. The funniest part is Virgil slamming that force ball into the ground just to make a crater. Like, bro, that was not needed at all. But he did it anyway because style matters. I bet he just wanted to flex a little. And the ending is perfect. Virgil picks up that angel metal like it is a rare loot drop, and you already know he is going to make something broken with it later. He ignores Charlie and Alistar because he does not give a fuck about their drama. And honestly, I think that makes Alistar respect him more. Real predators know when someone is built different and when to let them walk. The news spread through hell like fire through dry kindling, an unknown entity. Exorcists disarmed by the dozens. Adam wounded. Extermination Day ended early for the first time in recorded history. In the upper districts of Pride Ring, Overlords gathered in private lounges and secured channels. Not panicking. Calculating. The power structure of hell ran on leveraged territory and the implicit understanding that heaven was an untouchable constant. That constant had just cracked. Carmela Carmine's factories went into overdrive, production crews suddenly very interested in salvaging whatever angelic material had been left behind. She said nothing publicly. Didn't need to. The increased security around her warehouses said enough. Other overlords pulled assets back fortified positions, waited to see which way the wind would blow. The V's didn't wait. In Vox Tech Tower, 3 figures sat around a conference table that cost more than most sinners would see in a century. Screens covered every wall, cycling through footage social feeds. Predictive analytics. The same clip played on loop, Virgil walking away from heaven's retreating forces, coat settling, face utterly empty of anything resembling concern. Vox paused the feed. 72 hours since contact. No movement toward any established territory. No declarations. No demands. No pattern we can exploit. Velvet scrolled through her tablet fingers, flying across the interface. Aesthetics already mutating. Started as mysterious savior, shifted to unknown threat, now fragmenting into 6 different narratives. We're losing control of the story, because there is no story. Valentino leaned back, smoke curling from his cigarette. He's not playing the game. Can't control what won't engage. Everything engages eventually. Vox pulled up resource maps, territory divisions, infrastructure networks. The question is finding the pressure point. What does he need that we control, assuming he needs anything? Velvet set down her tablet. What if he's self-sufficient? No one's self-sufficient in hell. Vox's fingers drummed against the table. You need information. You need safe zones. You need leverage against other threats. The system is designed to create dependency. Valentino exhaled smoke slowly. So we make him dependent. How? Velvet's tone carried genuine curiosity. He just walked away from heaven. What leverage do we have that divine authority doesn't? Vox's screen face flickered through several expressions before settling on cold calculation. Heaven offers punishment or redemption. We offer something more practical. He pulled up an agreement template. Not the soul-binding variety Valentino specialized in. Something more subtle. Access agreements, information exchange protocols, protection arrangements. We don't trap him. Vox began modifying terms, adjusting clauses. We make it inconvenient to refuse. Valentino leaned forward, interest piqued. Go on. He demonstrated capability against angelic forces. That makes him valuable. But value only matters if it can be monetized. Vox gestured at the screens showing Hell's social feeds. Right now, he's a wild asset. Unpredictable. Dangerous to everyone, including potential allies. We offer to formalize that. Formalize how? Exclusive partnership. We provide infrastructure intelligence, territorial protection. In exchange, he operates within parameters we define, not ownership cooperation. Vox's grin returned. We don't need to own him. We just need to make independence more expensive than compliance. Velvet studied the document taking shape. And if he refuses, then we demonstrate what refusal costs. Vox pulled up additional files. Building permits, travel authorizations, resource allocation records. Hell runs on systems we control. Make those systems hostile to non-cooperation, and suddenly our terms look very reasonable. That's coercion. Velvet's tone was flat. That's business? Vox saved the contract draft. Val, you're up. Find him. Present the offer. Make it sound like we're doing him a favor. Valentino stubbed out his cigarette. And when he says no, if he says no immediately, he's emotional. We can work with that. Vox's screen brightened. If he reads it first, he's rational. We can work with that too. Either way, we get data. What if he just kills the messenger? Vox paused. Considered it. Then we know he's unmanageable, and we move to containment protocols. Either outcome gives us actionable intelligence. Valentino stood adjusting his coat. You're gambling I come back from this. You're the V with the most experience reading desperation. Vox met his stare. If anyone can find his price, it's you. Velvet watched Valentino leave, then turned back to Vox. You really think this works? I think we're the first ones moving while everyone else is still processing. Vox pulled up competitor monitoring feeds. Carmela will move once she understands the angelic weapon angle. The older overlords will form coalitions. We have maybe 48 hours before this becomes a bidding war. And if the arrangement fails, Vox's grin went sharp. Then we make sure he's everyone's problem, not just ours. Virgil found a place in the industrial sector. Abandoned factory structural integrity, intact few access points. Defensible without being obvious. He'd cleared debris from one corner, established a minimal perimeter. The angelic steel fragment sat on a flat piece of concrete. He'd been studying it for hours, testing resonance patterns, comparing it to Yamato's fundamental frequency. The connection was there, both operated on principles that transcended simple physical force. The steel carried holy authority. Yamato carried separation itself, compatible, potentially synthesizable. Not now, but soon. Footsteps approached. Multiple sets. Purposeful, but not aggressive. Virgil remained still, thumb near the guard. He didn't stand. Didn't turn, just waited. The factory door creaked open. The moth demon entered, first wings, folded, moving with the careful confidence of someone used to dangerous negotiations. 4 bodyguards flanked him, enforcers well-armed, smart enough to hang back. Valentino surveyed the space, noted the minimal setup, the strategic positioning. Cozy. No response. Not much for conversation, are you? He stopped 15 feet away. Respectful distance. Not threatening, not submissive. That's fine. I'll talk. You listen. Then we see where we stand. Silence. The Overlord pulled out a folder. Actual paper, not digital. Deliberate choice, harder to track, easier to destroy if needed. You made quite an impression. Heaven retreating. Angels damaged in ways they can't heal. Very impressive. Also very exposed. He set the folder on a piece of machinery between them. Didn't approach further. Hell's an ecosystem. Apex predators, sure, but even they operate within systems. Territory, resources, information. You're currently outside those systems. Valentino lit another cigarette. That makes you powerful. Also makes you vulnerable. Virgil's stare tracked to the folder, but he didn't move to take it. The V's are offering partnership, not employment partnership. We provide infrastructure you'll eventually need. Safe zones, intelligence on threats, authorization to operate in contested territories. Valentino exhaled smoke. In exchange, you provide your unique capabilities for projects we designate. Mutual benefit. What do you take in return? Virgil's voice cut through the factory's ambient noise like a knife. Valentino smiled. Not threatening, appreciative. Direct. I like that. We take operational oversight. You maintain autonomy in execution, but targets and timing come through us. We also take exclusive rights. You don't contract with other overlords without our clearance. That's ownership with different words. That's structure. Valentino tapped ash. Right now, you're a wildfire. Useful, but indiscriminate. We're offering to be the fire break. You burn what needs burning. We make sure you don't burn yourself out in the process. Virgil stood. The movement was economical fluid. He crossed to the folder, opened it. Scanned the contents. Standard Overlord binding structure. Access clauses. Operational parameters. Compensation schedules. Termination conditions. All professionally presented. All functionally binding in ways that would take decades to unravel through Hell's legal systems. There's a secondary benefit. Valentino's tone shifted, became more conversational. Heaven will come back. When they do, they'll be prepared. Having the backing of established Hell infrastructure means you don't face them alone. I don't need backing. Everyone needs something. Valentino's smile widened. Maybe not protection. Maybe information. Maybe just the convenience of not having every overlord in Hell treating you as either threat or opportunity. Virgil read through the contract slowly. Thorough. His face betrayed nothing. Valentino watched, trying to read body language, micro-movements, anything that indicated decision-making process. Found nothing. It was like watching a statue consider philosophy. Finally, Virgil closed the folder. No. No, as in revise the terms, or no as in no. Virgil set the folder down. I don't sign contracts. Everyone in Hell operates under some form of I'm not from Hell. Virgil's interruption was surgical. Your systems don't apply to me. Valentino's pleasant demeanor cracked slightly. You're operating in hell. That makes you subject to nothing. Virgil turned away dismissive. Take your contract. Leave. You're making a mistake. Valentino's voice hardened. The V's control 60% of Pride Ring's infrastructure. Media, transportation, information networks. Refusing us means operating against active resistance. Then resist. Yamato's sheath clicked as his thumb found the guard. It won't matter. Valentino's eyes narrowed. He gestured to the enforcers. They spread out, not attacking, but positioning, creating a perimeter. One of them pulled out what looked like a document scroll pre-signed enforcement tool. Emergency measure for difficult negotiations. We can do this the easy way or the hard way. Valentino's tone went cold. Sign willingly and maintain autonomy. Refuse and the agreement activates anyway. Hell's binding laws are very accommodating to established powers. The enforcer with this scroll began reading activation phrases. Old magic older than most overlords. The kind that created obligation through proclamation rather than consent. Virgil's thumb pressed against Yamato's guard. By authority vested in the V's, through territorial primacy and resource dominion, we hereby claim. Virgil drew. The motion was faster than Valentino's eyes could track. Yamato came out in a single fluid arc, not aimed at flesh, but at the space between the enforcer and the scroll he held. The cut made no sound, created no visible effect. But something changed. The enforcer stopped speaking, mid-syllable confusion crossing his face. The scroll in his hands lost cohesion, not burning, not tearing, simply ceasing to be a thing that existed as a unified concept. Words separated from meaning. Clauses disconnected from intent. The binding elements that made it an enforceable document, rather than paper, dissolved at a level more fundamental than physical destruction. The scroll fell apart, not into pieces, into the idea of pieces that no longer belonged together. The enforcer stared at his empty hands. What did you... Valentino took a step back. His entire posture shifted from confident negotiator to something approaching genuine concern. That's not possible. Virgil returned Yamato to its sheath. The motion was final. Contracts are bindings. I sever bindings. This shouldn't surprise you. You can't just... Valentino gestured at the dissolved scroll. That was pre-authorized, sealed by 3 overlords. Those protections are absolute. Nothing is absolute. Virgil's tone remained flat. Your power operates through systems, agreements, obligations, enforced arrangements. He looked directly at Valentino. I exist outside that framework. One of the enforcers reached for a weapon. Virgil's gaze shifted to him. Didn't threaten. Didn't need to. Just looked. The enforcer's hand stopped halfway. Valentino's mind raced through options. Direct combat was suicide. They'd all seen what happened to Heaven's forces. Retreat meant losing face, losing leverage. But staying meant... what? Bargaining with someone who'd just demonstrated their ability to unmake the fundamental tools of Hell's power structure. The other V's won't accept this. Valentino's voice was carefully controlled. You just declared yourself hostile to Hell's entire economic system. I declared nothing. Virgil turned away again. You attempted enforcement, I prevented it. Draw whatever conclusions you want. Every overlord in Hell will see you as threat. They already did. This is different. Valentino's wings rustled with agitation. Before you were unknown. Dangerous, but potentially manageable. Now you've demonstrated you can unmake bindings. That's existential. That's the foundation of Hell's power structure. They will unite against you. Then they'll fail together instead of separately. Virgil's hand left Yamato's hilt. Leave now. Don't come back with contracts. Valentino stood there for a long moment calculating. Then he gestured sharply to his enforcers. They retreated, backing toward the door, weapons still half ready. At the threshold, Valentino paused. You know what the difference between power and survival is? Virgil didn't respond. Allies. Valentino's voice carried something almost like genuine advice. No one survives hell alone. Not even you. Watch me. Valentino left. The factory door clanged shut behind his entourage. Virgil waited until the footsteps faded, then returned to his corner. The angelic steel fragment still sat on the concrete. He picked it up, felt its resonance, resumed his study. The V's would react. Other overlords would move. Heaven would eventually return with new strategies. None of it changed what needed to be done. In Vox Tech Tower, Valentino's return was met with immediate attention. The screen-faced Overlord and Velvet were already monitoring his vital signs through the building's surveillance, had seen the confrontation through the enforcer's body cameras. He severed the scroll. The media overlord's voice was quiet, dangerously so. Not destroyed. Severed. The binding itself. I saw it. Valentino poured himself a drink with hands that weren't quite steady. It wasn't violence. It wasn't magic. It was like the contract forgot how to be a contract. Velvet pulled up the footage, ran it through analysis software. There's no energy discharge, no magical signature. Just the motion, and then the scroll stops being coherent. He cuts concepts. The screen-faced Overlord leaned back, staring at the frozen frame of Virgil, sheathing his blade. Not just matter, not just energy. The fundamental relationships that make things function. That means every contract in hell is vulnerable. Valentino drained his glass. Every deal, every binding, every sole ownership claim. If he can sever the connection between agreement and enforcement, the implication settled over them like a shroud. Velvet spoke first. We need to reposition. If this gets out, if every bound soul in hell realizes someone can cut their chains, mass chaos, he finished. Revolution. The entire power structure collapses, so we contain the information. Valentino set down his glass. Limited circulation. Only the overlords who absolutely need to know. Won't work. The media baron pulled up social feeds. It's already spreading. Fragments, rumors. In 48 hours, every sinner in hell will know there's someone who can break contracts. Then we pivot. Velvet's expression hardened. If we can't control him, we make him everyone's problem. Force the other overlords to deal with it. Or, his screen flickered. We make sure he's too busy with heaven to focus on hell. Valentino raised an eyebrow. You want to bait heaven into accelerating their response. I want to make sure the next time they come, they bring everything. The expression returned, but it was different now. Sharper, more desperate. Let the two threats fight each other. We stay out of the crossfire and pick up whatever pieces remain. Risky. Velvet scrolled through projections. If he wins again, he'll be even more untouchable. If heaven wins, we go back to normal exterminations. A shrug. Either way, the variable is removed. And if neither wins, if it becomes a war of attrition with hell as the battlefield, the screen face went blank. He had no answer for that. In a quiet corner of hell that most forgot existed. Alistar listened to his radio, not broadcasting, receiving. The airwaves carried fragments. Overlord chatter, emergency channels, panic dressed up as strategic planning. He smiled. Not his usual performance grin, something more genuine, more interested. A blade that cuts promises, he murmured to himself. How delightfully inconvenient for the nouveau riche. The V's had built their empire on contracts, on binding agreements, on making hell's chaos orderly enough to profit from. Someone who could unmake that with a single stroke wasn't just powerful. They were poison to the entire system. Alistar wondered how long it would take for the older powers to notice. The ones who remembered when hell ran on different principles. Before contracts, before territories, when power was something you took and held through sheer will rather than paperwork. Welcome to chaos, dear V's. Alistar adjusted his bow tie. Population, one very sharp problem. He changed the radio frequency. Time to see who else was paying attention. Back in the factory, Virgil set down the angelic fragment. Enough study for now. He'd learned what he needed. The steel could be integrated, but required precise manipulation. Not brute force. Surgical application. Tomorrow's task. He found a clear space near the wall, positioned himself where he could monitor both entrances. Not sleep. Awareness without attachment. The discipline that kept him alive. Outside hell processed new information. A being who severed agreements, who walked free of the chains that bound everyone else. In back rooms and burned-out buildings, the bound began to whisper a question they'd never dared ask before. What if... Okay. So honestly, Chapter 3 is just the V's finding out that capitalism does not work on a guy who can cut reality with a sword. And I think that shit is embarrassing for them. Vox walks in all confident, like, yeah, bro, I can offer you a deal. Like Virgil is job hunting or needs dental or something. Meanwhile, Virgil is sitting there in a factory staring at reality like it is a math test. Well, I honestly think Vox really believed this would work. Like he thought money, fame, contracts, all that shit mattered. And Virgil is just there like, why are you talking to me? It is peak comedy watching Valentino pull up with his little folder, acting like a big boss. And then realizing he's talking to a guy who treats social talk like an annoying puzzle. I bet Virgil is not even trying to be rude. He just truly does not get why these weak demons think they are anywhere near his level. And okay, guys, the moment Val tries that forced contract move is wild. That is such a cheap trick, like bottom-tier villain shit. And then Virgil just cuts it. He cuts the idea of the contract. Like the agreement itself just forgets how to exist. That shit is insane. I honestly think this is where everything breaks. Because hell runs on deals. That is their whole system. And Virgil can just delete that with one swing. You can see the V's go from, yeah, we can own this guy, to, oh, fuck, he can erase our entire business model. It makes total sense that Alistar is laughing his ass off in the background. He knows the game just changed. I bet if Vox was smart, he would unplug the internet and hide under his desk. Trying to monetize a guy who can cut the terms of service is basically asking to get wiped from existence. The broadcast district never truly slept. Even days after extermination, the towers hummed with residual energy screens flickering through automated cycles. But there were pockets. Dead zones where signal failed to penetrate, where static reigned instead of content. Virgil walked through one such pocket now, a street lined with abandoned broadcast equipment. The kind of place most sinners avoided, too quiet, too empty of the noise that kept hell distracted from itself, which made it exactly the kind of place someone would choose for a private conversation. You have excellent instincts. The voice emerged from shadows that hadn't been there a moment before. Most would miss the signs. The too perfect coincidence. The path that seems random, but leads exactly where I need it to. The radio demon stepped into view, cane in hand, that perpetual expression fixed in place. His posture carried no threat, no aggression. Only the casual confidence of a predator who'd carefully engineered this meeting to look spontaneous. Virgil stopped. Didn't reach for Yamato. Just waited. No surprise. He tilted his head. Either you expected me or nothing surprises you. I wonder which is more interesting. State your business. Direct. How refreshing. His cane tapped against broken pavement. Though I'd hardly call this business. More of a courtesy call. Professional to professional. We're not professionals in the same field, aren't we? His face brightened fractionally. We both exist outside established hierarchies. We both make other powers nervous simply by existing. We both recently demonstrated that the rules everyone else follows don't quite apply to us. Virgil's expression remained flat. You want something. Everyone wants something, dear boy. The question is whether what I'm offering is worth what I'm asking. He gestured to a partially intact radio tower. Shall we discuss this somewhere marginally more comfortable? Or do you prefer conducting negotiations in the street like some common thug? Virgil considered it. Calculated angles, escape routes, tactical disadvantages of enclosed spaces, then walked toward the entrance. If Alistar wanted him dead or trapped, there were easier methods than conversation. Inside the lobby was a graveyard of broken equipment. Microphones on stands mixing boards with shattered displays, promotional posters for shows that would never air again. The Overlord moved through it like he owned the space, which he probably did. Everything in hell belonged to someone. Information. He turned to face him. That's what I'm offering. Specifically, information you'll need to survive the next 48 hours. Continue. The V's are regrouping. You knew that, I'm sure. What you might not know is they're leveraging every resource they control to make your existence here as difficult as possible. Travel restrictions, resource denial, propaganda campaigns painting you as an existential threat to hell's stability. Virgil showed no reaction. Expected? Of course it is. You're not a fool. His fingers drummed against his cane. But the V's aren't your primary concern. Carmela Carmine is. That got a fractional shift in attention. Small, but the Overlord noticed. Ah, yes. The armorer, the weapons dealer, the Overlord who built her empire on understanding how to kill things that shouldn't die. His voice took on a theatrical quality. She's been very interested in the angelic material from the recent unpleasantness, and even more interested in you specifically. The one who damaged divine beings in ways they can't repair. She wants to study me. She wants to replicate you. The correction was swift. If she can understand how you sever those connections, she can weaponize it, sell it, arm every Overlord in hell with the ability to wound divinity permanently. Virgil absorbed this. Useful information. What's the cost? Direct to the point. I do admire efficiency. The smile never wavered. The cost is simple, an obligation, undefined, unclaimed, to be called in at a time and manner of my choosing. No, Alistar raised an eyebrow. You refuse before hearing the full terms. I don't trade in obligations. Virgil's tone was final. Contracts, arrangements, debts, all the same mechanism, different wrapper. Not quite. Alistar stepped closer, not threatening, but attentive. A contract binds through law. What I'm offering binds through honor, through understanding, through the simple acknowledgement that you received value and will return value in kind. Still binding. Is it? Alastar's head tilted at an unnatural angle. I'm not asking you to sign anything. No magical enforcement, no legal framework, just a gentleman's agreement. You've benefited from my information. Someday I'll ask you to remember that benefit. The air changed, subtly. The static from dead equipment took on a different quality. This was the trap. The elegant noose disguised as civility. You're attempting to create expectation. Build obligation through the act of giving. Manufacture debt where none exists. I'm offering a mutually beneficial arrangement. Alistar's voice maintained that pleasant tone, but something underneath had gone sharp. You're new to hell. You don't understand the ecosystem. The V's control infrastructure. Carmilla controls weapons. The older powers control territory. Without allies, you're isolated. Vulnerable. I don't need allies. Everyone needs something. Alistar's cane tapped 3 times. Deliberate rhythm. Even you. Even if it's just information about what's coming. Heaven will return. When they do, they'll bring countermeasures, strategies designed specifically for you. Wouldn't you want to know what those are? Virgil studied him. The smile, the posture, the careful construction of every word. Alistar wasn't making threats. He was building architecture, creating a framework where refusal seemed unreasonable, where acceptance felt inevitable. You're wasting time. He turned toward the exit. Am I? The voice followed him. Or am I the only one in hell treating you like an intelligent being, rather than a resource to exploit or a threat to eliminate? He paused. The V's want to own you. Heaven wants to destroy you. Most overlords want to avoid you entirely. Alastar's broadcast voice softened, became almost conversational. I'm offering something different. Recognition. One apex predator acknowledging another. At the cost of obligation. At the cost of possibility. The radio demon moved to block the exit. Not physically, he was still several feet away. But his presence filled the space nonetheless. Consider it. Just consider it. Information now, a return later, without contracts or binding magic. Only understanding between two entities who operate outside normal hierarchies. The static intensified. Radio frequency interference, creating patterns that almost resembled language. This was Alastar's domain, his element. Every word, every tone modulation, every pause, all calculated to create the illusion of equality while establishing dominance. Yamato's sheath clicked softly. Alastar's smile flickered. Just for a moment. The first genuine uncertainty in the entire encounter. I don't recommend that. His voice lost its theatrical quality, became flat, serious. We both gain more from cooperation than conflict. This isn't conflict. Virgil drew. The motion was precise, measured. Not aimed at Alistar's physical form, but at the space between them. The air where expectation hung like smoke. Where the concept of reciprocal arrangement was forming, invisible, but present, waiting to solidify into obligation. Yamato passed through nothing tangible, through idea itself. The static cut out. Completely. For exactly 1 second, the tower experienced absolute silence. No ambient hum. No electrical buzz. No radio interference. Just void. When sound returned, something was different. The architecture Alistar had been building, the careful framework of reciprocal obligation, of gentlemen's understanding of civilized exchange, had lost coherence. The connections between offered value and expected return had been severed. Not destroyed, severed, separated at a level that prevented them from ever reconnecting. Alastar's expression didn't change. His face remained fixed, but his eyes shifted, calculating, reassessing. How? He stopped, started again. That shouldn't be possible. There was no formal agreement, no magical binding, just social construct, abstract expectation. Exactly. Virgil sheathed Yamato. The motion carried finality. You tried to manufacture debt from generosity. Create obligation from information freely given, but strategically deployed. I separated the connection between the gift and the expectation of return. But it wasn't. His cane tapped once uncertain rhythm. It wasn't real yet. Just potential. How do you sever something that hasn't formed? By understanding what it would become. He walked past him toward the exit. You build power through relationships, through networks of obligation and reciprocity. I exist outside those networks. Everyone exists within some structure. The voice had lost its assured quality. That's basic social mechanics. Even isolation is a position relative to others. Then I'm redefining the terms. Virgil stopped at the threshold, didn't turn. Don't involve yourself. Not a threat. Not a warning, just statement of fact. Alistar stood alone in the tower for several moments after Virgil left. His expression remained in place. Habit reflex, the mask he wore so long it had fused to his face. But his fingers drummed against his cane in an irregular pattern. For the first time in decades, a favor had failed to take root. Not rejected, not declined, not even consciously resisted. Simply prevented from existing. Like trying to plant a seed in soil that had been fundamentally altered to reject that specific type of growth. He pulled out a small radio from his coat, turned it on. Static greeted him, but underneath the noise, he could almost hear where the severance had occurred. A gap in the frequency. A place where signals should exist, but didn't. How delightfully inconvenient. His voice came out steadier than he felt. The radio crackled. Nothing meaningful, just noise. But that noise told him something important. Virgil hadn't just refused a favor. He'd made the concept of owing Alistar impossible to establish. Past, present, or future, the separation was absolute. Alistar turned off the radio and walked deeper into the tower. He had other resources, other approaches. But this particular avenue, the one he'd used successfully for decades, was permanently closed. He'd have to be more careful going forward. In Vox Tech Tower, an alert pinged on one of the monitoring systems. Vox pulled up the data stream, frowned at what he saw. The hell? He rewound the feed, watched it again. Surveillance near the broadcast district showed Alistar entering an abandoned tower. Normal. Then Virgil entering shortly after. Concerning but not alarming, Alistar collected interesting variables. Then, nothing. A gap in the recording. Not corruption, not damage. Just absence. 90 seconds where data should exist but didn't. When the feed resumed, Virgil left. Then Alistar, several minutes later, moving differently. Less assured. Like something had shifted in his understanding of the world. Vox pulled up communication logs. No phone calls, no radio transmissions. Whatever happened in that tower, it left no electronic trace. He made a note in Virgil's file. Severed Alistar's leverage. Method unknown. Recommend extreme caution in any negotiation attempts. Then he pulled up Carmela's file. If the radio demon couldn't establish influence, it was time to see if the weapons dealer would have better luck, or worse luck depending on perspective. Charlie sat in the hotel lobby trying to process incident reports. Sinners who'd been saved during extermination. Buildings that survived. Lives preserved despite heaven's assault. The numbers didn't make sense with what she knew happened. Too many survivors. Too much intact infrastructure. Like someone had redirected the entire assault away from populated areas. Overthinking it. Vaggie set down a cup of coffee she'd brought. Sometimes things just work out. Things don't just work out in hell. Charlie gestured at the reports. Someone intervened. Someone with enough power to make exorcists change tactics, to make Adam retreat. And you think it was him. Vaggie didn't need to specify who. I know it was him. Charlie looked at the window toward the district where the factory was. But why he said our survival was incidental, that he wasn't protecting us. Maybe that's true. Vaggie sipped her coffee. Maybe he was just removing obstacles, and we happened to benefit. That's not how heroism works. Good thing he's not a hero, then. A new voice. Alistar emerged from the shadows near the bar. He's far more interesting than that. Charlie turned. You talked to him. Attempted to? Alistar's smile was in place, but something about it seemed strained. It didn't go as planned. What happened? I offered cooperation. He declined in a manner I'm still processing. Alistar tapped his cane thoughtfully. Tell me, dear Charlie, in all your studies of redemption, did you ever encounter someone who couldn't be influenced because they existed outside the framework of influence itself? That's not really how people work. Precisely. Alastar's eyes had gone distant, which makes him either not a person or a person who somehow transcended the basic mechanics of social existence. You're being cryptic. I'm being accurate. Alistar turned toward the door. If you want my advice, and you rarely do, don't try to recruit him. Don't try to save him. Don't try to understand him. Just acknowledge he exists and hope he continues moving in directions that don't intersect with your goals. He left before Charlie could respond. Vaggie set down her coffee. That was unsettling. That was Alistar scared. Charlie's voice was quiet. I've never seen him scared before. He wasn't scared. He was, rattled, off balance. Same thing for him. Charlie looked back at her reports. The numbers still didn't add up, and now Alastar's cryptic warning added another layer of confusion. Someone who existed outside the framework of influence. What did that even mean? In the factory, Virgil resumed his study of the angelic fragment. The interruption with Alistar had cost time but provided data. Hell operated on interconnected power structures. Remove one connection, others compensate. But remove the ability to connect entirely, and the whole ecosystem destabilized around you. Not his concern. He hadn't come here to understand Hell's politics. He'd come through necessity, the portal, the battle, the wound in space that Yamato had created. Getting back required understanding the mechanism, which meant understanding what made this realm distinct from his origin point. The angelic steel was part of that. Blessed material that existed in hell but drew power from heaven. A bridge between realms. If he could replicate that bridge's fundamental properties, a sound outside. Footsteps. Multiple sets again. Different pattern than Valentino's enforcers. More disciplined. Military rather than criminal. Virgil pocketed the fragment and stood facing the entrance. 3 figures entered. Not overlords, not sinners, something else. Dressed in practical combat gear rather than Hell's usual ostentatious fashion. Each carried weapons that hummed with familiar energy. Angelic steel. Proper weapons, not fragments. The lead figure stepped forward, removed her helmet. Female professional bearing eyes that assessed threats, the way Virgil did methodically without emotion. Carmine Industries. Her voice was crisp, businesslike. I'm authorized to make you an offer on behalf of our principal. Virgil said nothing. My employer is interested in your capabilities, Bechatube. Specifically your ability to inflict permanent damage on divine entities. She's willing to provide resources, protection, and compensation in exchange for your cooperation in developing defensive applications. No, the woman didn't react to the immediate refusal. You haven't heard the terms. Don't need to. Virgil's hand rested near Yamato, not threatening, ready. Leave. Mr. Carmine is prepared to be very generous. Access to our entire armory. Information on Heaven's operational patterns. Safe houses throughout Pride Ring. All we ask is consultation on methods and perhaps a demonstration of technique. You want to weaponize what I do? Virgil's tone remained flat. Sell it, distribute it, turn precision into product. We want to defend Hell. The woman's expression didn't change. Heaven will return? When they do, we need countermeasures. You've proven such measures are possible. Help us protect our realm. Not my realm, not my concern. Virgil turned away. Last warning, leave. The woman glanced at her companions. They shifted hands, moving toward weapons. Not drawing, just preparing. Miss Carmine anticipated resistance. The woman's voice hardened slightly. She authorized us to demonstrate that cooperation benefits both parties, while resistance complicates things. The 2 armed figures spread out, not attacking yet, positioning, creating overlapping fields of fire. Professional tactics. Virgil's hand closed on Yamato's grip. Stand down. The lead woman raised one hand. We're not here for conflict, just to deliver a message. Ms. Carmine respects strength. She's willing to negotiate as equals rather than attempt coercion. But she does require a response, yes or no. No. Then we're authorized to extend an invitation. Tomorrow evening. Neutral ground. A conversation between principals. She pulled out a card, set it on a piece of debris. No obligations, no bindings. Just discussion of mutual interests. Virgil looked at the card, but didn't move to take it. She's offering what the V's couldn't. What Alistar tried. What heaven won't. The woman's tone remained professional. Respect. Recognition that you're a power to be negotiated with, rather than managed or eliminated. And if I don't come, then we go back to observing from distance and hoping you don't become our problem. The woman gestured to her team. They fell back, weapons lowering. The choice is yours. It always is. They left. Professional, organized, no threats, no posturing. Virgil picked up the card. Address in the Commerce District, time and date. Simple, direct. He set it aside and returned to his work. Tomorrow would bring another attempt at binding. Different method, same goal. They all wanted the same thing. Control ownership leverage over something they perceived as threatening. None of them understood that control required consent. And he wasn't giving it. Across Pride Ring, Overlords adjusted strategies. The V's refined their containment protocols. Carmela prepared her pitch. Everyone scrambling to categorize a variable that refused every framework they applied. But in quiet corners, away from Overlord territories and surveillance networks, bound souls paused. Tested chains that had always held. Whispered questions about arrangements they'd assumed were permanent. Word traveled through the underclass's contracts, severed obligations unmade. The impossible made real. The architecture of Hell's power had developed its first crack. Okay, so honestly, Chapter 4 is just Alistar thinking he is smooth and getting shut down hard, and I think that shit is really funny. He brings Virgil into this creepy radio tower like, yeah, I can handle this guy. He starts talking about doing a favor, acting nice and polite. But I think Virgil saw through that bullshit right away. A favor is just a deal in disguise, and Virgil does not play that game. Well, the best part is when Alistar tries to make the room feel heavy, like Virgil owes him something now. And Virgil just pulls out Yamato and cuts the idea of expectation itself. Not a person, not an object, just the feeling. And boom, the awkward pressure is gone. That is such a broken move. He literally erased the vibe. I honestly think that is the first time Alistar felt real fear. His whole power is talking deals and messing with people's heads. And Virgil just showed none of that works on him. I bet Alistar realized he cannot control this guy at all. And okay, guys, Carmela trying after that is also funny. She comes in calm and professional, thinking she has a chance. Virgil says no and keeps it moving. No deal, no business, nothing. He is clearly tired of everyone trying to profit off him. Honestly, this chapter proves Virgil is the final boss of introverts. He would rather cut reality than owe someone a favor. And I think that is kind of perfect. The orders came down 3 hours after dawn, not from the highest councils. Not from the seraphim, who preferred diplomatic solutions and measured responses. These came from operational command, from the division that handled problems heaven couldn't ignore and couldn't afford to study. The lieutenant stood in the staging area, reading the directive twice to make sure she understood correctly. Retaliation sweep, no capture, no investigation, no attempts at communication or containment. Elimination. She looked up at the assembled strike team. 30 exorcists, handpicked. Each one had lost squad mates in the previous engagement. Each one carried the new equipment, blessed steel forged specifically for permanence rather than intimidation. Target priority, she said, voice clipped and professional. The entity designated Variable 1. Secondary objectives include any Hell native forces providing support or shelter. Tertiary concerns are irrelevant. An exorcist raised her hand. Rules of engagement. There are none. Her tone carried no emotion, just fact. Heaven has reclassified this from enforcement to threat elimination. Collateral damage is authorized. Civilian presence is not a restricting factor. The team shifted. This wasn't how exterminations worked. Those had rules, quotas, limits. This was something else. Ma'am, another spoke up. If we're operating without restrictions, that means she didn't mention the other part of her orders. The unwritten addendum from Adam himself delivered in private. Make it hurt. Make hell understand what happens when something attacks heaven. The officer wasn't interested in sending messages. She was interested in results. Deploy in 15 minutes. First strike hits the industrial sector where the entity was last confirmed. We flush it out, pin it down, and end this. She met each of their stares. No mercy, no hesitation. This is war. The portal opened above Pride Ring, like a wound torn fresh. No gradual descent this time, no formations. The squad dropped through in a single wave, weapons drawn already firing before they hit altitude. The industrial sector lit up. Holy fire rained down on factories, warehouses, abandoned structures. Not indiscriminate tactical. Burning escape routes. Destroying cover, creating a kill zone with one exit. Sinners scattered. Most ran. Some tried to fight back with whatever weapons Hell's black market provided. It didn't matter. The strike team wasn't here for them, but they weren't avoiding them either. A warehouse exploded. 3 sinners inside. Loot didn't slow down. They spread out in a search pattern, methodical and efficient. Kick down doors. Clear rooms. Move to the next structure. Anyone who resisted got put down. Anyone who fled got ignored, unless they headed toward known hiding spots. Contact. One of the exorcists transmitted. Multiple heat signatures, Factory 7. Structurally defensible. Burn it. Loot adjusted course. Drive them out or bury them. Either works. The factory's walls came down under concentrated holy fire. Screaming, running, chaos. Loot landed on the rubble, scanned the area. Thermal showed fleeing signatures, wounded sinners, structural damage. But no anomaly. No cold spot where energy went to die. Expand the perimeter. Hit residential zones if needed. She ignored the looks her team gave her. The target will respond to pressure. We provide pressure. 2 blocks away, an apartment complex that had survived extermination day caught fire. Virgil heard the screaming before he saw the flames. He'd been in the lower industrial district, away from the previous day's activity, when the first explosions hit. Not random. Coordinated. Professional application of overwhelming force to create a response. They were hunting him, and using Hell's population as bait. He moved through the streets, coat pulled close, avoiding the main thoroughfares. Above angels swept in tight patterns. Different tactics than before, less formation-based, more aggressive. A building collapsed 3 blocks north, deliberately demolished. Smoke rose from a dozen fires. This wasn't enforcement. This was eradication. Virgil reached a vantage point, assessed the situation. 30 hostiles spread across 6 blocks. Civilian casualties mounting. Infrastructure damage extensive. All centered on areas where he'd been confirmed present in the last 48 hours. They were creating a box, destroying everything inside it until he either engaged or allowed Hell's lower classes to burn. But uncontrolled variables complicated outcomes. And this level of destruction would draw more attention, create more interference. Make the environment less predictable. He needed stability to complete his work. This was the opposite. Decision made. Virgil dropped from the vantage point, landed in the street below. Started walking toward the densest concentration of exorcists. Loot saw him first. No dramatic entrance. No announcement. Just a figure in dark clothing walking calmly through a combat zone like he was taking a stroll. All units target confirmed. Sector 4 approaching on foot. She signaled her team. Converge and engage. Remember blessed steel only. No regular weapons. We end this permanently. The angels moved into position. Not rushing. Disciplined. They'd learned from previous encounters. Virgil stopped in the middle of an intersection, waited. Loot descended landing 20 feet away. Her weapon hummed with an energy that felt different than standard blessed steel, sharper, more focused. No speeches. Her voice was flat. No terms, no retreat. Virgil's hand rested near Yamato. He didn't respond. You made heaven bleed. Loot's grip tightened. We're returning the favor. She moved, fast. Faster than the previous assault. Rage channeled into precision. Her strike came in low, aimed for the leg's disable mobility, then finished the job. Virgil sidestepped. Minimal movement. Let the attack pass through space he'd already vacated. Loot adjusted mid-swing, brought the blade back in a reverse arc. Virgil's hand came up, caught her wrist, redirected the momentum. She spun with it, used the rotation to gain distance. Two more angels attacked from different angles. Coordinated assault. One high, one low, no escape angle. Virgil drew Yamato. The blade came out in a single motion that bisected both attack vectors, cutting trajectory rather than flesh. Both attackers found their weapons redirected, striking air instead of target. Before they could recover, Virgil moved forward. 3 steps. First, Angel took an elbow to the solar plexus, folded. Second, caught Yamato's pommel across the temple, dropped. Both alive, disabled. Loot came in again, this time with backup. 4 angels staggered, timing overlapping coverage. Yamato moved in arcs, too precise to track. Each motion served multiple purposes: parry, redirect, create opening. One angel's spear split down the middle. Another lost her helmet. A third had her wing armor severed, sent spinning. But they kept coming. And they were learning, adapting attack patterns, avoiding obvious counters. Then force him. Loot drove forward, blessed steel aimed at Virgil's center mass. He caught the blade with Yamato. Steel met steel. The sound rang across the sector. Why? The word came out between gritted teeth. Why interfere? This isn't your realm. These aren't your people. No. Virgil's answer was quiet. But this is inefficient. He twisted Yamato. Loot's blade went wide. His free hand shot out, palm strike to her sternum. She flew backward, hit rubble, slid. The squad regrouped. 12 now, the rest positioning for a coordinated assault. They'd seen enough. Time to commit. Full barrage. Loot stood breathing hard. Overwhelming firepower. Don't give him space to counter. Holy light gathered. Not individual attacks, mass bombardment. The kind of assault that deleted city blocks. Virgil's eyes tracked the energy buildup. Calculated yield. Blast radius. Collateral damage extending 3 blocks in every direction. Unacceptable. His hand moved to his note. Pulled out something small. A fragment of angelic steel worked over the past days. Edges refined, resonance aligned with Yamato's frequency. He pressed it against the blade's flat, held it there. Blue energy spiraled along Yamato's length. The material didn't reject it, merged. Temporary fusion. The katana's edge took on a different quality. Still cutting, still severing, but now carrying something else. Permanence. Fire! Loot's command cracked across the channel. The bombardment came down. Virgil moved through it, not dodging, not blocking. Moving with surgical precision through gaps in the barrage that shouldn't exist, but did, because he'd calculated their exact position and timing. His blade came up. Summoned swords materialized, not dozens, just 6. Each one carrying that same blessed resonance. Each one aimed not at armor or weapons, but at the exorcists themselves. The first sword took an exorcist through the shoulder, pinned her to a wall. She screamed not in pain, but in shock. The wound wasn't closing, wasn't healing. The divine tissue around the impact site had gone gray, lifeless. Second sword, third, fourth, each one finding a target. Each one creating damage that divine healing couldn't touch. Fifth sword hit an exorcist who tried to flee. Through the leg. She went down, still breathing, still conscious. But the flesh around the steel was dying, spreading slowly but inexorably. The sixth sword, Virgil kept launching it directly at Lute. She tried to dodge. Too slow. The blade caught her wing, passed through bone and feather and divine essence. The wing separated. Cleanly, permanently. Lute hit the ground, staring at the severed appendage. It didn't disintegrate, didn't fade, just lay there. Separate, real, gone. No, her voice was small. That's not we're supposed to. You wanted war. Virgil approached her position, Yamato still carrying that blessed edge. This is what war costs. Virgil's blade moved, not killing, cutting the communication device from her hand. It clattered to the ground, still transmitting static. He looked at Lute. At the angels pinned or wounded. At the ones still standing but hesitating now, fear overriding training. Not casualties. Lute's voice had gone hollow. Confirmed kills. Angels. Dead. Actually dead. The word rippled through the remaining forces like a shockwave. Withdraw. The order came from someone else, another officer who'd kept enough composure to function. Immediate tactical retreat. Bring all wounded. Document everything. They scrambled. Helping the pinned ones free carefully, afraid the steel would kill them if removed wrong. Carrying those who couldn't fly. One of them grabbed Lute's severed wing, unsure what to do with it, but unwilling to leave it behind. Virgil watched them retreat. Didn't pursue. Didn't need to. When the last angel had cleared the sector, he checked Yamato's edge. The fusion was already fading, the fragment's resonance depleting. Temporary measure, effective but not sustainable. He pocketed the fragment. It had served its purpose. Proof of concept. The blessed material could be integrated, could make his strikes permanent against divine beings. Good to know. The sector was quiet now. Fires still burning. Buildings collapsed. Civilian casualties in the double digits. All because heaven needed to send a message. Inefficient, wasteful. Virgil left the carnage behind. He had work to do. The angelic fusion needed refinement. The resonance pattern needed stabilization. And eventually, heaven would return with better tactics. He'd be ready. In Heaven's command center, the reports came in with military precision. Confirmed angelic fatalities 7. Irreversible incapacitation 4. Severe non-healing injuries 12. Total combat effectiveness loss 23 out of 30 deployed. Adam stood over the casualty list, face unreadable. Beside him, a senior commander reviewed tactical footage. The entity integrated blessed material into his primary weapon. Temporarily but effectively. All fatal casualties resulted from wounds inflicted during that integration. The commander paused. Sir, this changes operational parameters significantly. How so? We're no longer dealing with a being that can wound us. We're dealing with one that can kill us. Permanently. Using our own steel's properties against us. The commander pulled up footage of Lute's wing separation. That wound won't heal. Not in days, not in centuries. It's gone the way mortal wounds are gone. Adam's jaw tightened. Recommendations? Full strategic reassessment. If the entity can weaponize blessed material, then conventional assault is ineffective. We need either overwhelming numbers that accept total casualties or a fundamentally different approach, such as, the commander hesitated. Containment rather than elimination, observation rather than engagement, or another pause. Petition the higher councils for intervention beyond our operational tier. Seraphim involvement. Adam looked at the footage again. Virgil walking through holy fire like it was rain, cutting through elite units like they were training dummies. And then the crucial part, letting them leave. He didn't need to let them retreat. Adam's voice was quiet. He could have killed them all, had the capability, chose not to. No, it makes him calculating, controlled. That's worse. Adam turned away from the screens. Prep a full briefing for the councils. Include everything. And get me intelligence on Hell's reaction. If we know this, they know this. And they're going to want what he has. Blessed steel, integrated into a blade through resonance rather than forging, creating irreversible damage to divine beings. She rewound the section showing the wing's severance, analyzed the wound pattern, the way divine tissue simply stopped functioning around the impact site. Get me everything we have on the entity's katana. She spoke to her assistant without looking away from the screen. Material composition, energy signature, any metallurgical data our contacts in the industrial sector might have collected. We don't have much. He doesn't leave equipment behind. Then get me the fragment he was seen studying. Someone in that sector knows where he works. Find them. Convince them to cooperate. Carmela zoomed in on Yamato's blade during the fusion. That resonance pattern, if we can replicate it, we can arm Overlords with the ability to permanently kill angels. Ma'am, the political implications are exactly why we need to move fast. Carmela stood. Heaven just lost 7 angels. Actually lost them. Hell hasn't been able to do that in recorded history. Whoever controls that technology controls the balance between realms. She pulled up her secured communication network. Time to make calls. Time to leverage every asset she had. The game had changed. And Carmela Carmine didn't stay ahead by being cautious. At the Hazbin Hotel, Charlie watched smoke rise from the industrial sector. Reports were coming in. Angels dead. Really dead. Sinners caught in the crossfire. Infrastructure destroyed. And one name at the center of it all. Vaggie stood beside her, spear gripped tight. They came looking for a fight. They got one. But permanent death, that's... Charlie trailed off. She'd built her entire philosophy around redemption, around the possibility of change, of second chances. Death, real permanent death, meant no second chances, no possibility of growth, just ending. He's defending himself. Vaggie's tone was carefully neutral. They showed up with weapons specifically designed to kill him. He responded in kind, by killing them, by surviving. Charlie turned from the window. Where does it end? Heaven sends more, he kills more, they escalate, he escalates. Eventually, this entire realm becomes a battlefield. It already is a battlefield. Alistar's voice drifted from the lobby entrance. It's just more honest about it now. Both of them turned. The radio demon stood there, that ever-present expression in place, but his eyes were sharp, focused. You talked to him. Charlie's voice hardened. You know something about this. I know he's consistent. Alistar tapped his cane. Heaven attacks. He removes the threat. Hell schemes. He refuses participation. Everyone tries to control him. He makes control impossible. A pause. It's actually rather elegant in its simplicity. Angels are dead. Angels chose to engage someone capable of killing them. Alastar's tone carried no sympathy. That's not murder, dear. That's natural consequences. There's nothing natural about this. Isn't there? Alistar moved further into the lobby. For millennia, angels operated with absolute certainty of their invulnerability. Now that certainty is gone. They're experiencing what every being in hell experiences: genuine risk. Mortality. The actual possibility of permanent ending. His grin widened slightly. Welcome to our reality heaven. Charlie wanted to argue, wanted to find the moral high ground. But the words didn't come. Because part of her, the part that had watched extermination days, had seen angels slaughter sinners with casual cruelty, had built a hotel on the hope that maybe things could change. That part wasn't sure. She disagreed. In the industrial sector, Virgil returned to his current workspace, different location than before. More secure, less obvious. The angelic fragment sat on a clean surface. He picked it up, examined the resonance patterns. The temporary fusion had worked, but depleted the material faster than anticipated. He'd need a more stable integration method, something permanent rather than borrowed. The mathematics were complex. Divine energy operated on different principles than demonic or human essence. But principles could be understood. Patterns could be mapped. Solutions could be engineered. He had time. Heaven would regroup, analyze, develop new strategies. That would take days, possibly weeks. Hell's overlords would move faster. They'd seen what was possible. Would want to acquire or replicate it. More offers, more deals, more attempts at control, or... Virgil set down the fragment and pulled out his notes. Calculations on spatial rifts, observations on how this realm's physics differed from his origin point, theories on using blessed material as a catalyst for dimensional bridges. Everything else was noise. The fact that heaven had lost angels today. The fact that hell now knew divine beings could die. The fact that someone had just rewritten fundamental assumptions about inter-realm conflict. Tomorrow would bring new complications. New attempts to leverage control or eliminate him. The pattern was predictable. So was his response. In heaven's war rooms, commanders revised doctrine. Angels who thought themselves untouchable now understood mortality. In Carmela's workshops, engineers reverse-engineered footage frame by frame. The race to weaponize what shouldn't be possible had begun. 7 angels dead. The equation had changed. It means we do whatever is necessary to remove the threat. She checked her weapon. Angelic steel newly forged, designed to cut deeper than flesh. To sever connections that normal blessed weapons couldn't touch. Command has determined that Variable 1 represents an existential risk to Heaven's authority. We're authorized to demonstrate consequences. And in the center of it, nothing. No Variable 1. No target. The fight accelerated. He's not using the severance technique. 1 transmitted. Holding back. For a moment they held there locked. Lute's face twisted with effort and fury. Virgil's expression remained empty. An exorcist nearby tried to radio for reinforcement. Her voice shook. Command, we have confirmed final casualties. Repeat final. Divine healing non-responsive. Requesting immediate, take your wounded. Leave. His voice carried across the sector. Next time, bring better preparation. Lute's hand scrabbled for her weapon. Found it. Tried to stand. Fell. One of her team rushed to her side, helped her up. Ma'am, we need to evacuate. The casualties. Yes, sir. That doesn't make him less dangerous, sir. In Carmela Carmine's private workshop, the weapons dealer watched grainy footage on a secure feed. He killed them. Her voice was barely a whisper. Actually killed angels. All irrelevant. Getting back required understanding. Understanding required study. Study required stability. Not his concern. He had work to do. In Vox Tech Tower, Vox archived every second of combat data. Information to sell. Leverage to exploit, fear to monetize, and in quiet corners throughout Hell's lower districts, sinners spoke a name they didn't know. The one who made angels bleed, the one who refused every offer. The variable no system could contain. Virgil barely noticed. He had equations of his own to solve. The recording went live within an hour. Vox had learned early in Hell's hierarchy that control wasn't about truth. It was about who told the story first, loudest, and with the best production value. The raw data from Lute's assault sat on his servers. Angels dying, Virgil walking through holy fire, blessed resonance creating wounds that wouldn't heal. In the wrong hands, it could spark revolution. In the right hands, his hands, it became leverage. He sat in Vox Tech Tower's central control room, surrounded by editing stations and live feeds. Velvet occupied one display, Valentino another. The rest cycled through every channel in Pride Ring. Angle 2, frame 47. Vox pulled up the moment Virgil integrated the fragment. Slowed it down, enhanced the energy signature. That's our opening. Velvet leaned forward. You're not going to show the angels dying? Of course not. Dead angels make him sympathetic, a victim of heaven's aggression. Vox adjusted color grading made the blue energy look colder, more menacing. We show him weaponizing divine power, stealing what doesn't belong to him, becoming a threat to both realms. And if people ask about casualties, we acknowledge them. Tragic loss of life on both sides. Unavoidable in conflicts this scale. Vox's screen flickered through expressions settling on concerned authority. But we frame it as escalation. Disproportionate response. A being with no allegiance creating chaos for its own purposes. Valentino exhaled smoke slowly. You think narrative will work where contracts failed? Narrative is the only contract that matters. Vox finalized the cut. People don't follow power. They follow stories about power. And I'm about to tell hell the most compelling story it's heard in decades. The transmission went out across every screen in Pride Ring, not as news, as entertainment, as documentary, as warning. Vox opened with the extermination footage carefully edited to show heaven's measured response to a dangerous entity. Then the factory confrontation where an unknown being severed divine connections with surgical precision. Then speculation from experts Vox had on payroll analysts who discussed threat levels, strategic implications, the danger of unchecked variables. And finally, the question posed directly to viewers. Is this protector or predator, savior, or threat? Someone defending hell from heaven's tyranny or something far more dangerous creating the conditions for war? The response was immediate. Social feeds erupted. Sinners arguing. Overlords taking positions. Some praised the entity who could kill angels. Others feared what came next. The smart ones stayed quiet, watching to see which way opinion would shift. Vox didn't care about the answers. He cared about owning the question. We're trending across all demographics. Velvet pulled up analytics. Engagements through the ceiling. 80% penetration in the first 3 hours. Good. Phase 2. Vox switched feeds. Aesthetic campaign. Make him iconic but uncomfortable. Something people recognize but can't fully embrace. We want familiarity without affection. Velvet's fingers flew across her interface. Within minutes, stylized images flooded the feeds. Virgil's silhouette against fire. The katana mid-swing. Blue energy spiraling in abstract patterns. Beautiful but cold. Powerful but alien. Merchandise, she asked. Limited run. Create scarcity. Let people think they're part of something exclusive. Vox monitored engagement metrics. But keep the messaging ambiguous. We're not endorsing, we're documenting. And when he shows up to object, then we have footage of him threatening free press. Vox's grin widened. Either way, we win. Virgil saw the feeds. Every screen in hell carried the same framing, just different angles. Some praised, some condemned. All used his image without permission or understanding. They'd taken combat clips, moments of tactical response, to immediate threats and recontextualized it as theater. Made choices look like aggression. Made necessity look like choice. Inefficient, but not immediately harmful. He returned to his current workspace. The angelic fragment required more study. The temporary fusion had proven the concept, but revealed limitations. The resonance depleted too quickly, needed a more stable matrix. Perhaps multiple fragments working in concert rather than sequential application. Vox's voice kept streaming, explaining, analyzing, framing. Noise. Virgil focused on the mathematics. Energy transfer ratios, dimensional frequency alignment, the actual work that mattered, but the noise persisted. Growing louder, more coordinated. By day 3, the message had solidified. Variable 1 became the accepted designation. Not savior, not threat, just variable. Unknown, requiring management. Overlords who'd previously avoided direct action began making contingency plans. Carmela accelerated her research. Smaller powers formed coalitions just in case. The entire realm operated under the assumption that someone needed to handle the situation. And Vox positioned himself as the only one capable of understanding it. We're getting cooperation requests from 6 major territories. Belvet read off the list. They want our video, our analysis, our strategic assessment. License it at premium rates. Include usage restrictions. Vox watched engagement continue to climb. Information is worthless if everyone has it. We control the feed, we control the frame. He still hasn't responded. He will. Vox pulled up probability models. No one ignores becoming Hell's most discussed entity. Eventually, he'll move to correct the story. And when he does, we document that too. Valentino tapped ash into a crystal tray. What if he doesn't care about his image? Everyone cares about how they're perceived. It's basic psychology. Vox's certainty was absolute. Even if he claims indifference, the social pressure will force engagement. And engagement is all we need. In Vox Tech Tower server farms, data flowed through carefully managed channels. Bandwidth allocated. Priority established. Every transmission synchronized to Vox's master control. It was a perfect system. Redundant, reinforced, capable of handling Hell's entire communication infrastructure without strain. Vox had built it over decades. Every connection, every relay, every signal pathway traced back to his architecture. He didn't just control the message, he controlled the medium itself, which made what happened next impossible. The first sign was latency. Microseconds of delay that shouldn't exist in a system this optimized. Vox noticed, but attributed it to load. Engagement this high sometimes stressed even redundant networks. Then the delays increased. Half seconds, full seconds, transmissions falling out of sync across districts. Check the routing protocols. Vox pulled up diagnostic screens. Something's creating bottlenecks. His technician scrambled, ran analysis, found nothing. The pathways were clean. The hardware functioned perfectly. But the signal kept degrading. Live feeds began stuttering. Vox's carefully crafted message chopping into fragments, words losing context, images freezing mid-frame. It's not the equipment. One technician looked genuinely confused. It's like the connection itself is fracturing. That's not a technical term. Vox's screen flickered with irritation. Find the actual problem. Sir, I don't know how else to describe it. The data's traveling through the correct channels. But it's not arriving coherent. Like something's cutting the continuity between transmission and reception. Vox reviewed the diagnostic readouts. Traffic patterns normal. Power consumption optimal. Every metric within acceptable parameters, except the actual streams were falling apart. He switched to manual override. Tried to force synchronization. The system responded briefly, then degraded again. Isolate the sectors with the worst interference. We'll reroute through backup channels. They tried. The interference followed. Not attacking the hardware, not corrupting the data, just disconnecting the relationship between source and destination. Vox felt something he rarely experienced: uncertainty. Then his main feed cut entirely, mid-sentence. His image froze on screens across Pride Ring, mouth open, one hand gesturing at nothing. The feed didn't return. Virgil stood outside Vox Tech Tower, katana drawn. He wasn't cutting the building, wasn't attacking the infrastructure physically. The architecture remained intact. The servers kept running. The power flowed uninterrupted. He was cutting something else. Yamato moved in precise arcs, each one targeting connections that existed in concept rather than space. The relationship between broadcaster and audience. The thread that made transmitted information meaningful. The invisible framework that allowed Vox's voice to carry authority. Each strike separated a piece of that framework. Transmission wasn't just technology. It was agreement. Collective acceptance that the voice from the screen mattered. That the image carried weight. That the narrative deserved attention. Virgil broke those agreements, not destroying them, disconnecting them from their foundation. Inside the tower, monitors showed chaos. Every feed fragmenting differently. Some went dark. Others repeated the same 3 seconds endlessly. A few showed static that almost looked intentional. What the hell is happening? Velvet's avatar flickered. The whole network's... Her image dissolved into pixels. Valentino tried to speak. Got 2 words out before his connection dropped. Vox stood alone in his control room, surrounded by displays showing nothing coherent. He tried to transmit, tried to explain, tried to take control of the narrative spiraling away from him. His voice came out chopped, distorted. Meaningless fragments that couldn't construct sentences. Not possible, can't just... How is... The main screen went black. 2 words appeared in white text. No signal. In the streets of Pride Ring. Sinners found, every display dead. The constant background noise of Vox tech, streams, the thing that had defined Hell's information landscape for decades, simply stopped. No explanation, no warning, just silence. Some sinners checked their devices, found the same thing. No signal, no connection, no voice telling them what to think about the latest crisis. Overlords and private channels discovered their supposedly secure feeds were just as dead. The infrastructure existed. The technology functioned. But the meaning had been severed from the medium. Messages could be sent, but they didn't arrive as intended. Transmissions happened, but they transmitted as noise rather than narrative. Vox's empire hadn't been destroyed. It had been disconnected from its purpose. In the hotel, Charlie watched her monitor flicker and die. She'd been following the coverage, Vox's careful framing the public response. The building narrative about threat management. Now nothing. What happened? Vergil checked her own device. Same result. I don't know. Power's fine. Equipment's working. But there's no... Charlie trailed off. It's like the signal forgot how to mean something. Alistar materialized near the bar, radio static crackling around him. How delightfully archaic. Back when I ran my broadcasts, this is what every competitor's feed sounded like after I'd had a word with them. You did this, me. Heavens no, I operate in audio, dear. This is something far more comprehensive. His static intensified momentarily. Someone just severed the entire concept of broadcast authority. Made every transmission equally meaningless. Democracy of noise, if you will. That's not possible. And yet... Alistar gestured to the blank display. Vox built his power on being the voice everyone heard. Now he's just sound without meaning. Rather poetic, don't you think? Charlie looked at the blank screen. At the silence where constant coverage had been. He's not attacking people. He's attacking... She struggled for the word. Systems. Alistar finished. Frameworks. The invisible architecture that gives power its shape. He paused. Vox tried to control how Hell perceived him. So he cut Vox's ability to control perception itself. That's terrifying. That's precision. Alistar's tone carried something almost like respect. Most beings break what threatens them. He severs its foundation and lets it collapse from structural failure. In Vox Tech Tower, Vox finally managed to establish a local connection. Just his control room. Just his voice. Status report, all divisions. What's operational? His technicians responded. Equipment functional, data intact, servers online. Everything worked exactly as designed, except the fundamental mechanism that made transmission matter had been cut away. Can we restore it? Restore what, sir? There's nothing broken. The system's perfect. It just doesn't connect anymore. That's not an answer. It's the only one we have. The technician pulled up diagnostic after diagnostic. It's like someone cut the concept of transmission while leaving all the physical components intact. We can send signals. We just can't make them mean what we want them to mean. Vox focused on the words displayed on his main screen. No signal. He'd built an empire on controlling information, on framing narratives, on making hell see what he wanted them to see. And someone had just made that impossible, not by destroying his empire, by disconnecting it from relevance. For the first time in decades, Vox couldn't transmit, couldn't shape opinion, couldn't control the story. He sat in his tower, surrounded by equipment that worked perfectly, but accomplished nothing. Virgil sheathed Yamato. The tower still stood. Vox still lived. The infrastructure remained functional. But the mechanism that gave it power, the collective agreement that these feeds mattered, had been separated from its foundation. They could rebuild it. Eventually. Re-establish the connections through new agreements, new frameworks, new patterns of attention. But that would take time. And during that time, Vox's narrative authority was void. Virgil had no interest in controlling the story. Didn't need to. Control required maintenance investment, constant reinforcement. Severance was simpler. Cut the relationship. Let the pieces exist separately. Move on. He left the tower district. Back to work. The fragment research continued. The fusion matrix still needed refinement. Hell's communication infrastructure would recover, or it wouldn't. Irrelevant. Behind him, Pride Ring sat in unusual quiet. Screens dark, feeds dead. Millions of sinners suddenly without the constant voice, telling them how to interpret events. Some panicked, some celebrated. Most just waited. Uncertain what happened next when the narrator stopped narrating. In her workshop, Carmela watched her own screens go blank. Switched to backup channels. Found the same silence. She pulled up her private network completely isolated from Vox tech infrastructure. It still functioned. Because it had never relied on Vox's framework. Interesting. She made notes. He didn't attack the technology, attack the social contract that made it powerful. Her assistant looked confused. I don't understand. How do you attack a social contract? By severing it. Carmela pulled up the combat data from outside Vox Tech Tower. A figure. A katana. Movements that looked like combat but cut nothing physical. Same way he severs everything else. Find the connection. Cut it. Let the pieces drift apart. Can Vox repair it? Eventually. But he'll have to rebuild trust, re-establish authority, convince people his broadcasts matter again. Carmela smiled slightly. That's not a technical problem. That's a social one. And those take far more time to solve. She switched her screens to show the combat footage from Lute's assault. The angelic fusion. The permanent wounds. Two things proven now. Angels could die. And Hell's information monopoly could be severed. The equation kept changing, and she needed to adapt faster. In the lower districts, away from Overlord territories and dead broadcast zones, sinners gathered in actual physical groups, talking face to face. No screens mediating the conversation. They discussed what they'd seen before the feeds died. The entity, the angels, the permanent damage, the implications. Without Vox's framing, the interpretations varied wildly. Some thought it meant revolution was possible. Others thought it meant war was inevitable. A few suggested maybe both sides were threats and survival meant avoiding all of them. No consensus emerged. Just conversation, debate. The messy, uncontrolled exchange of ideas that happened when no one owned the microphone. For the first time in years, Hell's narrative wasn't being managed, and no one knew if that was liberation or chaos. Vox sat in darkness, the no-signal message glowing before him. He'd tried everything. Technical solutions, brute force data transmission, appeals to his audience to manually reconnect. Nothing worked. Because the problem wasn't technical. It was conceptual. Someone had cut the invisible thread between broadcaster and believer, between source and authority, between transmission and trust. He could still send signals, but they arrived as noise, content without context, information without meaning. His empire existed, but it no longer functioned, and the entity responsible, probably already back to whatever work actually mattered to him. Not even aware he'd just collapsed Hell's primary power structure. Or worse, aware and completely indifferent. Vox's screen flickered through a dozen expressions before settling on something between rage and fear. He'd tried to control the narrative, to frame the threat, to manage perception. And the threat had responded by making narrative itself impossible. The screen went dark again. In a forgettable corner of Hell's industrial sector equations covered salvaged concrete, angelic resonance patterns, dimensional frequency maps, the mathematics of getting home. Virgil added another variable to the matrix. The fusion had lasted 3% longer this iteration. Acceptable progress. Vox Tech Tower's silence didn't register. Vox's empire collapse held no meaning. Hell could manage its own chaos or fail to irrelevant either way. Only the numbers mattered. Only the path forward. Yamato rested within arm's reach. Ready. Always ready. But for now, there was just the work. The eternal solitary work of solving problems no one else could comprehend. Hell screamed in a dozen new ways. He didn't hear it. 3 threats converged within the same hour. Heaven's portal opened first. Not the scattered assault from before. This came with formation discipline and strategic intent. Adam descended at the head of 60 exorcists, double the previous deployment. Each one carried weapons forged specifically for permanence. Blessed steel that hummed with killing authority. They spread across the industrial sector in overlapping patterns. No gaps, no single target focus. Area denial tactics designed to force engagement on their terms. 15 minutes later, every functional display in Pride Ring lit up simultaneously. Not Vox's usual polished production. Emergency override. Fail-safe protocols he'd kept offline since the severance. His image appeared distorted but present. Audio crackling but comprehensible. Bounty declaration, variable 1. Confirmed threat to Hell's stability. Any overlord who provides actionable intelligence receives full Vox Tech network restoration. Any sinner who assists in containment receives immediate contract amnesty. The message repeated. Crude, desperate, effective. Within minutes, opportunistic hunters mobilized. Not organized, not coordinated, just scattered violence aimed at cashing in. The third threat was consequence. Civilian districts caught between Heaven's sweep and Hell's bounty response. Buildings burning. Sinners fleeing. The kind of collateral damage that happened when multiple factions operated without caring who else occupied the battlefield. Virgil assessed the situation from a rooftop 3 blocks from the initial Heaven insertion point. 60 hostiles with permanent kill capability. Unknown number of Hell native attackers. Escalating infrastructure damage, creating unpredictable environmental variables. Base capabilities would handle it. Devil trigger if efficiency demanded. But the timeline concerned him. Neutralizing Heaven's force, 1 by 1. Acceptable casualty ratio, unacceptable time cost. The longer this lasted, the more Hell's opportunistic element would complicate the tactical picture. The more civilian areas would burn. The more variables would compound. He could solve each problem individually. Question was whether solving them sequentially left acceptable outcomes. An exorcist patrol swept his position. 5 angels, tight formation scanning rooftops. Virgil dropped behind them. Yamato came out in a horizontal arc that severed wing joints without touching flesh. All 5 went down. Alive, grounded, removed from tactical consideration. Fast, clean, insufficient, movement to his left. 3 sinners, armed with scavenged weapons, moving toward his last known position. Bounty hunters. Low threat individually, but indicative of larger patterns. He displaced. Let them pass. Killing opportunists wasn't efficient. There'd always be more. Another heaven formation descended 2 blocks east. Standard search pattern, professional execution. Virgil engaged. 15 seconds. 4 exorcists disabled their blessed steel, separated from functional grip. None killed. All removed from combat effectiveness. But 15 seconds was 14 seconds longer than optimal. And during those 14 seconds, 3 more patrols had repositioned. Heaven was adapting in real time, filling gaps as he created them. The mathematics weren't favorable. He could maintain this pace indefinitely. His stamina exceeded their numbers. But maintaining wasn't winning. Winning required ending the engagement before variables multiplied beyond calculation. An explosion rocked the district. Some sinner trying for the bounty with improvised ordnance missed Virgil. Hit a residential structure. Screaming followed. Unacceptable. Virgil moved toward the civilian zone. Intercepted a heaven patrol between them and fleeing sinners. 6 exorcists this time. They'd learned to travel in larger groups. The fight lasted 23 seconds. All 6 disabled. Virgil acquired a small laceration across his forearm, blessed steel minor contact already healing. But 23 seconds. And the civilians had scattered in 4 directions, creating new exposure vectors. Adam's voice cut across the district, amplified, projected. You can't protect them all. Can't be everywhere. We've got all day. How long can you maintain surgical precision when we're carpeting the entire sector? Tactical assessment accurate. Heaven had shifted strategy. Not trying to kill him, trying to exhaust his willingness to minimize collateral damage. Force him to choose between perfect execution and timely resolution. And Vox's bounty had created a secondary pressure. Every sinner with a grudge or desperation was now a potential hostile. Not dangerous individually, dangerous in aggregate, dangerous in unpredictability. Virgil returned to high ground. Surveyed the tactical picture. Heaven 60 exorcists, 19 disabled, 41 operational, coordinated, disciplined, escalating area coverage. Hell approximately 30 active bounty hunters scattered positioning, creating civilian exposure through reckless engagement attempts. Collateral, 12 fires. Multiple structural compromises, civilian casualties entering double digits. Timeline to resolution at current methodology, 47 minutes minimum. Acceptable losses during that timeline, unacceptable. Virgil's hand settled on Yamato's hilt. Felt the familiar weight. The blade that cut anything. That severed connections others couldn't perceive. But some problems required more than precision. Required overwhelming application of force to collapse multiple variables simultaneously. Required ending the engagement before it developed further. Decision made. Time to prioritize speed. The transformation wasn't dramatic. No announcement. No visible buildup of energy. Just a choice implemented with the same clinical precision he applied to everything else. Sin devil trigger, and the world slowed, not literally. His perception accelerated to the point where everything else seemed to move through syrup. Attacks he could predict became attacks he could observe developing across multiple futures simultaneously. Adam saw it first. Saw Virgil standing 3 blocks away, form wrapped in dark energy that bent light incorrectly. All units, Adam started, moved through space like the distance was a suggestion rather than a rule. One moment on the rooftop, next moment among the Eastern Patrol Group. Yamato sang through the air in arcs that existed before the blade arrived to trace them. 6 exorcists down, not dead, not even severely injured. Just stopped. their weapons severed from their grip at a level that prevented rearming. Their armor compromised in ways that made continued combat tactically unsound. The fight lasted 3 seconds. Virgil displaced again. Western patrol. 4 exorcists attempting to corral civilians. Similar result. Weapons separated, armor failed, bodies intact, but combat effectiveness eliminated. Southern group. 8 exorcists in defensive formation tried to coordinate response. Concentrated barrage, full output, now. Holy light gathered. Not individual attacks, mass bombardment. The kind that deleted city blocks. Virgil cut it. The energy dispersed, harmlessly, immediately. Like trying to hold water in a net. Adam stared. You can't just... Inefficient, Virgil said, voice unchanged. Tone clinical. You adapted, coordinated, applied appropriate tactical pressure. He paused. Insufficient. Yamato moved, not to kill. To finish. He hit the ground, hard, alive, defeated. Retreat, Adam said into his calm, voice hollow. All units, full tactical withdrawal. This engagement is lost. The remaining exorcists hesitated, then complied. They'd seen enough, understood enough. Virgil let them go. Watched the portals open. Watched heaven pull back for what both sides understood would be the last time. This wasn't a battle they could win. Wasn't a problem they could solve through force. The bounty hunters were next. Virgil moved through the district. Not killing. Disabling. The ones motivated by profit discovered their weapons didn't function correctly anymore. The ones motivated by desperation found themselves unable to locate him, even when he stood in plain sight. Fear worked faster than violence. Within minutes, the opportunistic element scattered, but Vox's fail-safe broadcast continued. That required different handling. Virgil traced the signal back to its source. Not Vox Tech Tower. Vox had learned that lesson. Emergency relay station hardened against physical assault designed to operate independently. Physical assault wasn't required. Yamato cut through the space between transmission and reception. Same technique as before, more refined now, faster. The broadcast died. Not because the equipment failed, because the concept of priority override lost coherence. The signal still existed, just no longer capable of demanding attention. Fires still burned. Structures still smoldered. Civilians still huddled in whatever shelter they'd found. But the active threats had been neutralized. Heaven retreating. Hell's bounty dissolved. The immediate violence concluded. He could end SDT now. Return to base state. But the form held advantages. Perception. Speed. Efficiency. Decision returned to normal state. The dark energy dissipated. Wings faded. Virgil's form returned to its usual configuration. Just a man in a coat. Just someone standing in a war zone. Wait, Charlie's voice. She stood at the edge of the sector Vaggie beside her. Both looked not afraid. Uncertain. Virgil paused, didn't turn. What you just did, Charlie continued. That power. You could have used it from the start. Could have ended this before. She gestured at the burning buildings. Before all this. Yes. Then why didn't you? Would have changed nothing. Virgil's tone remained flat. Heaven would have escalated regardless. Hell's opportunists would have responded to any demonstration of capability. The collateral was inevitable once multiple factions chose engagement. So you let it happen. I delayed it. Attempted minimal response. Tested whether surgical precision could prevent broader escalation. He paused. Data suggests otherwise. People died. People always die. Virgil finally turned, met her stare. The question is whether their deaths serve a purpose or just satisfy someone's need for control. I removed the control mechanisms. What hell and heaven do with that absence is their choice. That's not... Charlie struggled for words. You can't just... I can. Virgil cut her off. Not cruel, just factual. I exist outside your frameworks, outside your moral architectures. I solve problems that impede my objectives. Your approval is irrelevant. He started walking. Where are you going? And then what? Virgil didn't answer. Didn't need to. The question assumed he owed hell an explanation, assumed his presence here was anything other than temporary inconvenience. He left the sector, left Charlie standing in the wreckage, left the fires burning themselves out. Reclassification. Adam's tone was hollow. Variable 1 is not a hell-native threat. Not an overlord. Not something that operates within our established threat matrix. Elaborate. He doesn't fight like we fight. Doesn't engage on terms that allow tactical response. He cuts... Adam paused, searching for words. He cuts the rules we use to define combat. Makes our advantages irrelevant. Makes our numbers meaningless. Can he be killed? Unknown. But trying costs more than we can afford. Adam looked at the casualty reports. Recommend cessation of all direct engagement. Shift to observation and containment protocols. Do not provoke. Do not engage unless he initiates. The commander absorbed this. You're suggesting we leave him alone. Silence. In Vox Tech Tower, Vox stared at dead screens. The fail-safe had lasted 47 seconds. 47 seconds of restored broadcast authority. Then nothing. Not equipment failure, not interference, just disconnection again. He'd thrown every backup at the problem, every redundancy, every emergency protocol he'd built over decades, all severed in under a minute. Sir, a technician's voice, quiet, afraid. What? What do we do now? Vox didn't answer. Didn't have one. His entire empire had been built on controlling information, on shaping narratives, on making hell see what he wanted them to see. And someone had made that impossible. Twice. We adapt, he finally said. Voice mechanical. Find new methods, new frameworks, something he can't cut. But even as he said it, he knew there was nothing Virgil couldn't cut. No system, no power, no framework. You couldn't control something that existed outside control itself. The screen before him remained dark, no signal. Somewhere in hell, in a space he'd already abandoned, Virgil's temporary workspace still held his calculations. The angelic fusion matrix, the dimensional rift mathematics, the research that actually mattered. He didn't return there. That location was compromised, known. Instead, he found new ground. Deeper in the industrial sector, more remote, less observable. Set up again, continued the work. SDT had proven itself functional, effective, but costly in attention required. Invisibility created, preferable to avoid requiring it again. But if hell and heaven forced the choice, he demonstrated the outcome. The mathematics continued. The research progressed. Getting home was still the objective. Everything else was noise. He'd tried efficiency, tried surgical response, tried minimizing cost. The change was fundamental rather than cosmetic. Virgil's form shifted, not growing, not warping, refining, becoming a more distilled expression of what he already was. Dark energy coalesced. Wings manifested not angelic, but something else. Something that existed in the space between definitions. The combat equations simplified. Virgil moved. 2 seconds. Yamato passed through their formation like a thought through fog. Blessed steel separated from blessed intent. The weapons remained physical objects, just no longer capable of channeling the divine authority that made them dangerous. 4 seconds. Adam rallied his remaining forces, pulled them into a concentrated formation. 32 angels, maximum defensive coverage, overlapping fields of fire. Not the light itself. The relationship between source and manifestation. The connection between divine will and physical expression. Virgil appeared in front of him. Not threatening, not aggressive, just present. Adam's weapon separated from his hand. His armor lost structural integrity, his wings undamaged, but somehow disconnected from his capacity to remain airborne. You couldn't fight something that operated on fundamentally different rules. Vox's voice cut off mid-word. Silence returned to Pride Ring. Virgil stood in the industrial sector, SDT still active, surveying the aftermath. The question was whether maintaining it served a purpose. Analysis. No immediate threats. No tactical benefit to sustained transformation. Energy cost minimal, but unnecessary. He sheathed Yamato, turned to leave, to finish my work. In Heaven's command center, reports flooded in. Complete tactical failure. 32 angels combat ineffective. 17 weapons permanently compromised. 0 confirmed eliminations of primary target. Adam sat in the debriefing chamber, his armor being repaired, his weapon being analyzed to determine if restoration was possible. Recommendations? The commander's voice was carefully neutral. I'm suggesting we survive. Adam's voice was flat. He demonstrated restraint. Let angels live when he could have killed them. That restraint is the only reason Heaven still has operational exorcists. Recommendation accepted. All extermination operations in Pride Ring suspended indefinitely. Variable 1 designated observation priority only. And Virgil had gotten very efficient at eliminating noise. The next extermination day didn't come. Hell waited. Sinners watched the sky. Overlords monitored Heaven's usual approach vectors. The hotel staff prepared for annual carnage that had defined their existence for millennia. Dawn broke. The portals stayed closed. No proclamation, no announcement. Just absence where divine violence used to be. Charlie stood on the hotel balcony staring at empty sky. Vaggie joined her spears still gripped tight despite the silence. They're not coming, Charlie said quietly. Not today, maybe not ever. Vaggie didn't relax. Question is why? Because someone made it too expensive. Alistar's voice drifted from the doorway. Heaven operates on certainty. Certainty of victory. Certainty of divine authority. When that certainty breaks, systems pause to recalculate. You think it's permanent? I think Heaven learned what happens when you force engagement with something that exists outside engagement itself. Alastar's static crackled. They'll watch, observe, but they won't return with armies. Too much risk, too little gain. Charlie turned from the empty sky. So we won. No one won, dear. Alastar's expression remained fixed. We simply stopped losing in one particular way. Hell's still hell. Heaven's still watching. The hotel still stands on hope and optimism in a realm built on their opposites. But it's different now. Everything's different now. Alistar gestured toward the city. Look. Pride Ring stretched below them. Streets empty of their usual chaos. No Vox tech feeds dictating thought. No extermination driving sinners underground. Just quiet. The kind of quiet that happened when every framework people relied on had been removed. In Heaven's strategic command reports accumulated in sealed files. Variable 1 status unconfirmed. Last known position, Pride Ring industrial sector. Current threat level observation priority maximum. Recommendation, maintain suspension of all extermination operations indefinitely. Shift resources to monitoring and intelligence gathering. Avoid provocation. Seraphim Council response approved with reservations. Express concern regarding long-term implications of demonstrated withdrawal. Adam sat in his quarters, armor removed weapons still in analysis. They'd found nothing wrong with it. It worked perfectly. The problem wasn't the equipment. The problem was what Virgil had done to the concept of divine authority itself. Made it optional, severable, something that could be disconnected from the material it was supposed to empower. A knock. Another commander entered. Sir, the council wants your tactical assessment. Adam looked at his hands. Hands that had commanded thousands of successful exterminations. Hands that had enforced Heaven's will without question for longer than most civilizations existed. Tell them I have nothing to add to existing reports. His voice was hollow. We encountered something we can't categorize, can't predict, can't defeat through conventional means. Continuing engagement risks catastrophic losses for uncertain gain. And if it escalates, it won't. That's what makes it dangerous. Adam met the commander's eyes. It doesn't want territory, doesn't want recognition, doesn't want anything we can negotiate around. It just exists and removes whatever impedes that existence. The commander left. Adam returned to staring at his hands. In Vox Tech Tower, Vox sat surrounded by equipment that functioned flawlessly and accomplished nothing. He tried rebuilding. New frameworks, new approaches, new ways to establish broadcast primacy. All failed, not through technical limitation, through fundamental disconnection between transmission and meaning. His empire existed. The infrastructure remained intact. But the mechanism that made it powerful, the collective agreement that his voice mattered, had been severed at a level he couldn't repair. Velvet and Valentino sat across from him in the conference room. "We need to pivot," Velvet said. "New business model. If we can't control narrative, we control product, fashion, merchandise, tangible goods, which requires marketing, which requires broadcast capability." Vox's screen flickered through expressions. "We're back to the same problem. Then we go analog." Valentino stubbed out a cigarette. "Physical presence, in-person influence. The old ways. The old ways don't scale. They don't need to." Valentino leaned forward. "We survived before media dominance. We'll survive after." Vox wanted to argue, wanted to explain that survival wasn't enough, that the empire he'd built required more than just existing. But the words didn't come, because deep down, he knew the game had changed. Someone had rewritten rules he'd thought were fundamental. And all his adaptation, all his planning, all his strategic brilliance couldn't restore what had been cut away. "Do what you want," he finally said. "I'm done trying to control the uncontrollable." Velvet and Valentino exchanged glances, then left. Vox sat alone in his tower, staring at screens that showed everything and communicated nothing. At the Hazbin hotel, life continued with strange new rhythms. Angel Dust emerged from his room mid-afternoon, found Husk at the bar, as usual. Nifty cleaning obsessively. Sir Pinch's tinkering with some contraption. Normal, routine, except for the absence. "No feeds," Angel said, settling onto a bar stool. "No headlines. No one telling us how to feel about yesterday. It's fucking weird." "It's quiet," Husk corrected, pouring a drink. "There's a difference. Quiet makes me nervous." "Good. Means you're paying attention." Husk slid the glass across. "Quiet's when you figure out what you actually think, instead of what someone wants you to think." Charlie entered carrying supplies, repainting materials, structural repair tools. The mundane work of maintaining a hotel, the demons kept destroying and she kept rebuilding. "Meeting tonight," she announced. "We need to discuss what the hotel means now. What redemption looks like when the people who were supposed to judge it aren't watching anymore." "Does it matter?" Angel asked. "Heaven's not coming. Why keep trying? Because it was never about them." Charlie set down her supplies with emphasis. "It was about us. About believing we could be better. Heaven witnessing it was just bonus. Bonus that's gone. Irrelevant that's gone," Charlie corrected. "We do this because it's right, not because someone's keeping score." Angel considered that, shrugged, downed his drink. "Whatever you say, Princess." But he didn't leave. Didn't dismiss it entirely. Just sat there, thinking. Small progress, fragile progress. The kind Heaven's absence made possible because sinners were finally forced to decide for themselves, rather than react to divine punishment. Virgil found an abandoned church in the outskirts, not functional, not blessed. Just structure, walls, roof, privacy. The dimensional calculations had reached viable state. The angelic resonance stable enough for sustained application. The mathematics of return finally complete. He could leave, open a rift, step through, Resume whatever he'd been doing before this detour. Question was timing. Hell had stabilized. Heaven had withdrawn. The active threats neutralized. But stability was temporary. Eventually, someone would try to fill the vacuum, establish new control, rebuild what he'd broken. Inevitable, predictable, irrelevant. He wasn't responsible for maintaining Hell's equilibrium. Wasn't here to enforce lasting peace. Had made no promises, accepted no obligations. But the hotel, Virgil paused mid-calculation, considered. The hotel represented something unusual. Genuine attempt at improvement in a realm designed around degradation. Charlie's optimism was statistically doomed, but philosophically interesting, and she'd benefit from one final data point. He stood, collected his minimal possessions, headed toward the hotel. Charlie answered the door herself. Saw him, froze. "You're leaving?" she said. Not question, statement. "Yes." "When?" "Soon, after I provide relevant information." She stepped aside. Let him enter. The lobby was quiet. Just her, Vaggie, watching from the bar, Alistar observing from the shadows. Virgil faced Charlie directly. "Heaven won't return with armies. You've removed their certainty of success. They'll watch, but they won't engage unless you force them to." "Is that supposed to comfort me?" "It's tactical assessment. Use it or don't." Virgil continued. "Hell's control systems have been compromised. Contracts remain functional but lack enforced authority. Overlords will adapt through different mechanisms. Vox's media empire is permanently damaged. Expect fragmentation of information sources." "You're giving me a strategic briefing. I'm providing data you'll need to survive what comes next." Virgil's tone remained flat. "Your redemption project operates outside Hell's traditional frameworks. That made you vulnerable when those frameworks were absolute. Now that they're compromised, you have tactical opportunity. Opportunity for what? To prove redemption possible through demonstration rather than permission." Virgil paused. Heaven's approval was never requirement, just obstacle. Obstacle has been removed. Charlie absorbed this. "You're saying I should keep going. I'm saying the variables have changed in your favor. What you do with that is your decision." Silence settled. Vaggie approached, hand on her spear, but not threatening. "What about you?" she asked. "You just leave?" "After changing everything. I didn't change anything fundamental. Just removed mechanisms people used to avoid change." Virgil turned toward the door. "Hell will rebuild its controls. Heaven will maintain observation. Power structures adapt. That's not my concern." "Then what is—" Charlie's voice was quiet. Virgil paused at the threshold. "Solving problems that prevent me from reaching objectives. Hell was problem. Problem is solved. I continue. That's it. No goodbye, no explanation. Explanations imply ongoing relationship. We have none." He looked back briefly. "You wanted to save souls. I removed obstacles preventing attempt. Whether you succeed is not my responsibility." "You can't just—" But he was already gone. Door closing. Footsteps fading. Charlie stood in the empty lobby, Vaggie beside her, Alistar, watching from his corner. "Well," Alistar said eventually, "that was certainly efficient." "He helped us," Charlie said quietly. "In his way. He removed barriers to his own objectives. We benefited incidentally." Alastar's static crackled. "But yes, in his way he helped, by making everyone else's control mechanisms irrelevant." Charlie looked at the closed door, at the hotel around her, at the city beyond. No heaven watching, no Vox controlling narrative, no certainty of how this ended. Just her staff, her hope, and maybe, just maybe, that was enough. Outside Hell's formal territories, in a space between mapped districts, Virgil prepared the rift. The mathematics aligned, the resonance stable, the dimensional frequency calibrated to his origin point. He raised Yamato, drew a line through reality itself. The rift opened. Not portal severance, a place where this realm ended and another began. Through the gap, different sky, different physics, different problems. Home was relative term, but it was somewhere that wasn't here. Virgil stepped through. The rift closed behind him, sealed, permanent. Hell continued without him. Heaven observed from distance. The hotel rebuilt in silence. And somewhere in archived files, both realms kept a designation remained. Variable 1, unresolved. Because some problems couldn't be solved, just survived. And survival in its way was answer enough.
If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel, and be sure to turn on notifications so you won't miss our future video. Thank you for watching, and we will see you next time.